I don't know if I should say stand up today. I don't know. I don't know how you guys are going to react to the news or lack of news today. It's going to be a fun stream tonight, though, because we're going to pull up the press conference or whatever else you want to call it on Giants.com. I'll play that, what Joe Schoen had to say about the state of the organization. I'll play that. I'll kind of stop it, give my thoughts throughout it. It was about 13 minutes long. So, I'll talk about some of the things that he had to say in that. And we'll just talk about the Giants' decision really to stand pat at the trade deadline. Not really ultimately actually stand pat. The Giants decided to technically be sellers, right? I mean, you could at least look at it that way, right? Because we ended up trading away a piece, albeit a piece that I identified as a guy that the Giants probably were looking to trade for quite some time. But regardless, we ended up trading a piece and accruing more draft capital for next year rather than, bringing in a piece to try to help this year's team. So technically the New York Giants were sellers. And I even said it on Twitter today when I was thinking about it during the trade deadline. I can't remember the last time off the top of my head a team technically sold off a 6-2 start. But at the same time, I think you got to realize, and that's why I kind of pulled up what Brandon had to say. And I'll give my opinions on Joe Schoen and what he did today and my opinions of Joe Schoen thus far. I think you got to realize that this is Joe Schoen's show. This is Joe Schoen's team. And a lot of the players that are on this team are not his guys. And he has a long-term vision. And he's not going to just think about 2022 as much as fans. We may want him to think that way. Listen, I'm a fan. I want this team to win. I want this team to go out there, try to put the best possible team out there that they can to win football games. But it's his job to think about the best long-term interest as well as the best present interest of this New York Giants football team. And I'm going to go over some of the theories that I heard from fans today, and I'll give my overall thought process of it in terms of some of the things that the New York Giants could have done in terms of wide receiver acquisitions, and I'll give my opinion on all of it. Just want to say hello to everybody in the chat. What's going on there, Christy? What's going on there, Jason? What's going on, Justin? What's going on, Philip? Man, thanks for popping the stream. Christy in the chat, G in the chat, Omega in the chat, Troquam in the chat, Flex Lopez in the chat, Ethan in the chat, Richard Lee in the chat. Thank you guys for all the support you guys always show in the stream. But I want to start it with Brandon. Listen, Brandon, you don't have to trust Joe Schoen. I'm not telling anybody to trust Joe Schoen. All I'm telling you is give the guy a chance, give the guy an opportunity. And thus far, he hasn't been able to really build his roster. This is still, for the most part, Dave Gettleman's roster. This is still Dave Gettleman's guys. For the most part, he didn't have any cap space this year, so he really couldn't add anything in free agency. He had his first draft. These guys are still rookies. You got to give these guys a few years to develop. So I think this is a 3 or 4 year process. Maybe trust is the wrong word, but you have to be patient, in my opinion. You can't judge a GM off of 1 year. You just can't, especially with the situation that the guy inherited. Now, I want to talk about some of the theories that some fans had regarding the wide receivers. I'm going to get to the couple of the donations. Thank you guys for being here. But I want to get to a couple of the theories that some of the fans had today about the wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy, we'll start there, right? Jerry Jeudy was a guy that I would have wanted for the right price, right? I think his price was astronomical because when you look at it, Chase Claypool from the Chicago Bears, which, by the way, I don't know what the Chicago Bears were thinking. I know what they were thinking. They're trying to get Justin Fields help at the wide receiver position, and he certainly needs it. And now Daniel Jones, after that trade, probably has the worst wide receivers in the national, and not probably, definitely has the worst wide receivers in the National Football League. The Chicago Bears went out there and got Chase Claypool. But I'm going to be honest with you. If I was a New York Giant fan and Joe Schoen made that trade, I would have been furious, especially when you factor in where the Bears are probably going to be picking in next year's draft. And maybe I'll be wrong, and maybe that'll work out to be a great trade. But the Bears essentially gave up probably like the 40th overall pick, the 42nd overall pick for Chase Claypool, who's only under team control for 1 more year after this year. I could argue that a good GM should be able to find a wide receiver in next year's draft somewhat comparable to Chase Claypool, and you have him under 4 years of rookie control before he becomes a free agent. So I didn't love that trade. But when you look at what they got for Chase Claypool, the Pittsburgh Steelers I'm talking about, you have to think Jerry Jeudy's market was even higher, meaning that the Giants would have to give up a lot more than a second-round pick because we're projected, especially if we had Jerry Jeudy, to be picking a lot later in the second round than Chicago Bears. And I have to think that Jerry Jeudy probably has a little bit higher of a value, being that he's on pace to catch for over 1,000 yards this year, probably 7 or 8 touchdowns, and was thought to be a better prospect coming into the pros. So you're probably looking at like a second and a third for Jeudy, if I had to guess. And Shane probably looked at that and said, that's too high. That's just too high. I'm not willing to do that. And then another thing that I heard fans say, and I understand this as well, they could have went out there and they could have added a cheaper alternative. They could have added a Denzel Mims. They could have added, what's his name? The guy in Carolina. Why is the name escape me right now? No, obviously not Moore, but the cheaper wide receiver. Why is the name escape me right now? But people brought him up as well. Somebody's going to say it in the chat. I'll wait till they say it. Let me get the member chat real quick. David, man, thank you very much for being a member for 20 months. I know many fans wanted to get a wide receiver one, but we can't buy high right now. That's why I'm glad we didn't overpay for one in terms of draft capital. Terrace Marshall, that's what I was thinking about. And I agree with you. I don't think I wanted a wide receiver, but I didn't want the New York Giants to overpay. I thought it would have been a big mistake. But Terrace Marshall, that's the name I was trying to come up with. But this is and listen, I would have been completely for that, giving up like a 6th-round pick for a flyer. But when I really had time to think about it, I said to myself, it's entirely possible and reasonable. As much as we can't stand Kenny Golladay, as much as we want Kenny Golladay out of here as soon as possible, and believe me, Kenny Galladay's not coming back. But if Joe Schoen's intentions were to try to improve this roster, I think it's at least fair for him to potentially think that a guy like Terrace Marshall, who's done very little in the pros thus far, or a guy like Denzel Mims, probably is not going to have more of an impact. And if they are, it's going to be a slightly better impact than a guy like Kenny Golladay. Kenny Golladay is at least familiar with the offense. Kenny Golladay has at least played with Daniel Jones. So I'm not going to kill the New York Giants for not going out there and trading a 5th or 6th-round pick for an unknown commodity at the wide receiver position. That's just my opinion on the matter. And listen, I wanted a wide receiver just as much as anybody else because I look at the situation that the New York Giants have, and their wide receiver situation is putrid. It's horrible. They traded away Kadarius Toney. So I understand why fans are upset, and I understand why fans feel like Daniel Jones isn't getting a fair shake, and he's not. He doesn't have the necessary weaponry to go out there and be able to produce each and every week on Sunday. And we'll talk about that because fans are reading into it in their own interpretation based off what their motive is. Some fans want Daniel Jones out of here as quickly as possible. So some fans are reading into it, well, they don't believe in Daniel Jones. Other fans want to keep Daniel Jones. So they're reading into it another way. I'll give my opinion on that as well. But I don't necessarily think that this has anything to do with Joe Schoen's long-term thinking at the quarterback position. I think Joe Schoen just looked at the trade market and said that these prices are way too high, and I'm not going to be willing to overspend for this year's team, a team that has overachieved, a team that's fought their asses off, but I'm not going to hurt the potential future of this football team to help the 2022 team. That's ultimately what the decision came down to. It's entirely possible Joe Schoen may have evaluated Daniel Jones up to this point and realizes, just like most people, he doesn't have the weapons necessary to be able to compete. And he may say to himself, I'm willing to come back with this guy for another year if we could help him out next year. Or maybe you could read it the other way. I don't know. But I think the main takeaway out of this has nothing to do with Daniel Jones, has nothing to do with Saquon Barkley, has nothing to do with the players on the team. He read the market, and he didn't think the prices were worth it, and Joe Schoen wasn't willing to budge. And the other thing that I'll say about Joe Schoen is, the other thing that I think I've learned about him is, and I think it's very important, especially for a general manager in New York, he's not going to cave to the fan base. He's just not. And that's a good thing. You don't want your general manager caving to the fan base. You don't want your general manager to be influenced by what the fans think. You want him to do what he's paid to do, which is be the decision maker. So we'll see in the end whether or not he makes the right decisions or not. It's still very early in his tenure as the general manager, but I'm not going to go crazy about this. I'm just not. As much as I want this team to compete and win a championship this year, it's not just about this year, and that's at least my line of thinking with today's events. Thomas, man, thank you very much, man. All I'm going to say is that I trust Schoen and Dable. Hey, man, you don't have to trust them if you don't want to, if you're a fan right now, but what I'll say is you have to at least give them an opportunity, and it's way too soon to start saying we need to fire these guys. These guys don't know what they're doing, especially due to the fact that we've seen Brian Dable, who Joe Schoen hired, by the way, certainly looks like he knows what he's doing. And I think a lot of fans right now are kind of in panic mode over last week. We had a loss. We lost by double digits. People look at the box score. They say we got blown out. We were in the same exact position we were against the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans, we got the ball down 7 with about 5 or 6 minutes left, and we had a chance to win the football game. It was the same thing this week. Richie James muffed 2 punts. What are you going to do? It was a tough game on the road. You regroup. You go on a bye. You get healthy. You go back. You try to win a football game. I think we all realize that this is a limited team. We're not going to be able to go out there and sling the rock, and if we make mistakes, it's going to be hard for us to win football games on a weekly basis. It is what it is. This team's ahead of schedule. They're playing better than anybody expected, and the Giants are thinking long-term, and I'm not going to fault them for that. Demir, he says, as disappointed as I am, happy Schoen is seriously trying to be a long-term successful, trying to build a long-term successful team for New York. This is the right move. Yeah, listen, I think what I was hoping, Demir, going into the, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. What I was hoping going into the trade deadline as a fan of the New York Giants, because like you just said, I'm disappointed. I want this team to be able to compete this year. For God's sakes, we're 6-2 for the first time in forever. We have an opportunity. We're probably still going to the playoffs. You want to have your guns when you get there, right? I was hoping that Joe Schoen was going to be able to find an option that could suit both needs. where he trades away draft capital, but he gets a player in here that could help, be a part of the future of this team. A guy like a Jerry Jeudy, a guy potentially like a Chase Claypool. But obviously he felt like the market, what they were asking for, was way too high. And I'm not going to kill him for that. I'm going to let him make his decisions. I'm going to let him bring in his weapons next year. Make no mistake about it. The New York Giants are going to be highly targeting wide receivers next offseason. Anybody with a brain knows that at this point, right? I mean, for God's sakes, who the hell do we have? Next year, the only wide receiver that's probably going to be back that's on this current wide receiving core is probably Wan'Dale Robinson. Kenny Galladay's gone. Darius Slayton's a free agent. Good chance he's gone. Shepard's probably going to retire. We'll see if he does, but even if he does come back, he's not going to be a guy that you can depend on to be a starter. Galladay's going to be cut. We traded Tony. So we're going to have to add multiple wide receivers next year, probably both in free agency and the draft. And obviously that's going to be the primary focus, I think, going into next year, along with some other positions. And we'll talk about what Joe Schoen had to say in a bit, during the live stream. I'll pull it up for you guys, but I think that's obviously going to be a primary focus. And Schoen is thinking long-term. He's not willing to give up, primary draft capital. He's going to build it the way that he wants to build it. I'm not going to fault him for that. Let me just get to, and Baruch, man, thank you to remember for 29 months. Problem I have with Schoen is we are 6-2. I feel like we could have definitely used 5 or 6 or 7 for a wide receiver. We have an opportunity to make a run. Why not? Yeah. So yeah, here's what I'm going to say about that, Baruch. And I definitely get your opinion. I definitely respect what you're saying there. And I would be completely fine. It's like, what do you think you're going to get for a 5, 6, or 7 though? Right. Cause you're not getting Brandon Cooks. You might get the guys that we talked about earlier. I don't know if you just popped in. You might get Terrace Marshall. You might get Denzel Mims. You might get a player like that. Denzel Mims can't even find a way to start on the Jets. Terrace Marshall's not doing much on the Panthers. And maybe they would come here and play really well. I don't know. I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know what they would do. But I could at least see, as much, like I said earlier, Joe Schoen saying to himself, well, I got Kenny Galladay coming off the injured reserve. At least he's familiar with the offense. He's familiar with the offensive scheme. He's familiar with playing with Daniel Jones, even though he's never out on the football field. Maybe he comes back and maybe he can make more of an immediate impact just for this year's team. And why am I going to give up a 5th or 6th round pick for a flyer? That I could at least rationalize why Joe Schoen may feel that way, in terms of picking up a flyer. If you wanted to be able to pick up a guy that you knew was going to make an immediate impact, a guy like DJ Moore, a guy like Chase Claypool, a guy like, Jerry Jeudy, that was going to cost you a lot more than a 5th, 6th, or 7th round pick. It was going to cost you a 2nd round plus for a guy like Jerry Jeudy. So that's my line of reasoning. He probably didn't identify that tier of wide receiver to be a big difference maker for this year's football team. He probably feels like he could draft a guy like that next year's draft, a guy that he feels fits the offense well. That's just my line of reasoning. Maybe people in the chat disagree with it, but that's at least my line of reasoning, why he probably didn't make a move like that. Even though we certainly could use some help. I'm not saying we can't. We certainly could. And the Giants still could definitely go out there, add a cheap free agent. Maybe Beckham comes, right? I know that would be a very popular move with the fan base, but we'll see what they do in the end. I think right now, Kenny Galladay is going to come back. You got to hope as a Giants fan he can make some kind of impact. You got to hope that Wan'Dale Robinson continues to evolve as a football player in his rookie season, and Darius Slayton continues to play relatively well. Because right now, that's what we got. So we'll see what we could do for the rest of the year, but it's going to be challenging. I mean, I think we all know that we're limited at that position right now, the wide receiver spot. There's no doubt about it. Isaac, he says, Schoen drafted Neal, Kayvon, Bellinger, Belton, and signed guys like Moreau with limited cap space, so I think he's earned some trust so far. He's done a good job. I mean, listen, his draft picks, I'll say this, man, he's had a lot of bad luck with the draft picks, right, Isaac? Every one of I was talking about it today on Twitter, in a group chat I'm in on Twitter. Every one of his draft picks have gotten hurt outside of, I think, 2. Every one of them have gotten hurt outside of 2, and that's the linebacker. What's his name? Why does the name escape me right now off the top of my head? But McFadden, I don't think he got hurt at all, and Azudu hasn't gotten hurt. But outside of that, every one of his other draft picks have had some kind of injury. But yeah, they've made impacts. Belton's played well. Bellinger's played well. Neal was starting to play better. Kayvon's played well at times. And like you said, some of his cheaper free agents, he had no money to spend. Yeah, they've made impacts. The main one being the one that you mentioned. So we'll see. We'll see what he does, next year when he has more money to spend. But so far, yeah, I think he's done a good job. And obviously his best move has been the head coach. But yeah, I'm going to give him an opportunity. Chris says, let's applaud Joe Schoen for not trading Saquon Barkley. He was never trading Saquon. But, well, I shouldn't say he was never trading Saquon Barkley. If the Giants were 2-6, he may have traded Saquon Barkley, but where the state of the New York Giants are right now, he was never trading Saquon Barkley. That wasn't going to happen. Yeah, you want to talk about something that could completely destroy a locker room, which they've done such a good job in terms of building up to this point in the season. You go and doing something like that, that'll certainly do it. So that wasn't going to happen. So I'm not surprised by that at all. And I think right now, Barkley's trending towards coming back. Obviously, we still got another half season to play, and we'll see what happens in the offseason. But that's where I think things are trending. I hope this means he gets extended past 2023. I think he's coming back, provided he stays healthy for the rest of the year and continues to play at the level he's been playing at. But we'll see. We'll see at the end of the year. Mike Nixon says, I was a little disappointed that we didn't go for Calvin Ridley. Yeah, I think he got Calvin Ridley was a 4th and 5th round pick was the trade, but that 4th could turn into a 2nd. I think the stipulations behind that deal are Ridley has to sign a contract extension with the Jaguars, and then that turns into a 2nd round pick, which at that point it's worth giving up the 2nd round pick, right? Because if you're willing to commit $20+ million to him at the wide receiver spot, it means you were happy with the trade. I wouldn't have been against that trade because that trade didn't cost a whole hell of a lot, but that wouldn't help this year's team. But he can't play this year. He's suspended. But I would have been fine with that trade. But again, I mean, before I go crazy about that, and I did even make notice of that on Twitter, I did say I would have been okay with making a move like that. Let me see what they do in the offseason, because that to me is an offseason move. It's not an in-season move this year. He's not playing this year. He's playing next year. So let me see what they do in the offseason. Let me see what they do in the draft. Let me see what they do in free agency. Let me see if they make a trade in the offseason. We don't know. They could. Teams make trades all the time for wide receivers in the offseason. So it's not really a move I'm going to destroy them for, because it's not a guy that's going to make an immediate impact. He's not going to play this year. So let me see what the New York Giants and Joe Schoen do in the offseason. But yeah, I think that was a good trade for the Jaguars for sure. You didn't give up a whole hell of a lot. And if you end up giving up a little bit more, it means it was worth the trade, for Calvin Ridley. So we'll see how that pans out. But obviously, he's a very talented wide receiver. Sean, what's going on, man? Shane and Dable came from a winning roster. They know what talent looks like to win in the NFL. The team is overachieving. Let them build the team. Yeah, listen, I know it's hard to hear that as fans, and listen, I'm a fan too, so I want to see the acceleration just as much as everybody else, but I think that's the proper mentality. I think that's the proper mindset. So far, so good with this regime. We're 6-2. We've had more success with Shane and Dable than we've had, in forever. I mean, I guess Ben McAdoo, but even Ben McAdoo was false hope, right? Because we went out there and we spent like lunatics his first year, and then we saw how fake that was, right? There was no sustainability with that. This is a team that didn't spend anything in free agency. Everything's been draft picks and, improving players that were already on the roster from the prior regime in terms of coaching. So give these guys an opportunity to build the roster they see fit. And yeah, Sean, the guy wasn't willing to, hurt the future to help the present. And I can't blame him for that. He's got a long-term vision. He realizes that this team isn't going to be built in one day. Let's be honest with ourselves. As much as we do want to see a premium wide receiver, because I think it would be more fair for Daniel Jones. We would get a better evaluation of our quarterback. We would get a better evaluation of Saquon Barkley. We're not going to win a Super Bowl. I mean, anything could happen, I guess, in the NFL. If you get in, you got a shot. But realistically speaking, we're still not, we're not one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the NFL, even if we added a top wide receiver. We still have a lot of holes on the offensive line. We still have a lot of holes on the defense. It would have helped the team, and it would have given us more of an opportunity. But he's thinking about the long-term vision. He's thinking about building this team the right way. So as much as it pains me to say that, because I want to see this team get better this year, and I want to see this team have as best of an opportunity as they can to advance from within this year's playoffs, I also realize as a GM, not as a fan, that's not our job. I talk about that all the time on Twitter with fans. It's not my job as a fan, especially in season, to worry about 2023, 2024, 2025. It's entirely fair to think about it in the back of your head, but at the end of the day, I'm going to enjoy the season that's in front of me. I'm going to analyze the team in 2022, and when the season comes to an end as a fan, I will come to my decisions, my conclusions as to what I think we need to build upon, whether it be from the draft or free agency or everything else. It's Joe Schoen's job as a general manager to think 3, 4, 5 years in advance. That's what a general manager's job is. So yeah. Independent, he says, what do you think of the Carolina Panthers rejecting 2 first-rounders from the Rams for Brian Burns? Personally, that showed me the market was a little crazy. Yeah. Well, here's the thing, Independent, and I saw that. But the thing is, with the Rams first-rounders that they offered, they don't have first-rounders till like 2027. So that's not like the same value as your typical first-rounder that is offered in a trade. Generally speaking, when you offer the next year's pick, it doesn't hold quite as much value as that year's upcoming pick. And now you're talking about, offering 4 years in advance because, of course, they've traded away all these first-round picks in recent trades. So I'm thinking that had something to do with it. Carolina's looking at like, well, I'm not going to be able to use these picks till 2027. So I'd rather just hold on to Brian Burns. That's why I think ultimately that's why that happened. Had that been a 2023 and 2024 first-round pick, I think that trade probably would have went through. So I think that was the reasoning behind it. When I first saw the tagline, 2 first-round picks, I was like, what? They turned that down, but I think that was the reason. I think it was because the first pick wasn't until 2027. So, you think about that independent, the GM that would be making that trade, there's a very good chance wouldn't be the GM in 2027. So what good does that do him? You know what I'm saying? So I think that was the main reason behind it. Yeah, that was why that trade didn't go through. But yeah, some of the trades today were crazy in terms of the market and what the price was. One of the more surprising trades to me was TJ Hawkinson. Hawkinson gets traded from within division, NFC North. He goes from the Lions to the Vikings, which I think is only the second time I think I read, or maybe the first time since like 1999 that the Lions made a trade from within their division. And I didn't think that the Lions got near enough. The Lions got a second and third round pick, which, you figure are going to be back end of the second and third round because the Vikings are you figure going to be a top 2 or 3 seed in the NFC. So you're talking back end second, back end third. And then the Vikings get Hawkinson. In addition to that, the Vikings got a 4th round pick from Detroit and a conditional 4th round pick. So I don't think they got nearly enough for TJ Hawkinson in that trade. My only line of reasoning as to why they probably made it is they probably identified Hawkinson as a player they don't want to have to pay long term because he's going to be a free agent coming up soon. So they figured we could get let's get what we can. But if you had that mindset, it's kind of weird that you traded him in division. And I think that's the second time those two teams made a trade together this year or recently. I think I read that. I don't know. Maybe that was for draft picks because I think I read for a player since like 1999. But then I also read something that they had something, but maybe it was draft picks recently. Who knows? But regardless, that was a bit of a shocker for me today. And it actually helped the Giants and hurt the Giants at the same time because we played Detroit in week 11. So their team got weaker, but we also played Minnesota later in the season. Their team got stronger. Sports Biased says most teams don't make the playoffs. If you're in that position, 6-2, you screw the rebuild and win. Not a good move by Joe. And listen, I understand that opinion. I respect that opinion. And I want to get on board with you. Because I want this team to have the best chance possible to win a Super Bowl. And I really do in my heart really feel that Joe Schoen would have made a trade if he felt like it was fair market value. I feel like he probably felt like the guys that could legitimately make an impact for this team, which is not the Terrace Marshalls of the world. It's not the Denzel Mims of the world. It's the Jerry Judys. It's potentially a guy like Brandon Cooks. He probably felt like their asking price was way too much. And he's not willing to do that for a slight chance at going on a miracle run in the playoffs. So I'm not going to destroy him for it. Personally, I understand fans that look at it like that and they say, you don't know the next time you're going to get a 6-2 record and you're going to have this opportunity to go for this. But Joe Schoen has to balance it. He can't just think about, improving this year's team as much as he possibly can and overspending and hurting the future because of it. So it's a tough situation. It is. That's why he gets paid as much as he does. And that's why I'm not, I would never want that job. Well, I'm lying. Who wouldn't want that job? It's a sports job. You get paid a lot of money, but I definitely could sympathize for Joe Schoen because that's a very tough spot that he was put in today, right? Because nobody expected the New York Giants to be where they are ever. Joe Schoen, if anything, going into the year, probably thought he was going to be selling at this point in time. This was not part of his plan. And now the New York Giants have changed everything. They've changed the way that Schoen thinks about the team. They've changed the way that the fans think about the team. And he had to balance this year's team with the future. And in the end, he chose the future. He didn't completely sell because Kadarius Toney wasn't playing for this team anyway, but he didn't buy. He didn't do whatever he could to help this team. He wasn't willing to overcommit. So he chose the long-term vision rather than the short-term vision. And I understand fans that are upset and wanted him to choose the short-term vision. Gabe, what's going on? Sup, Chris? We made the right decision. Draft Smith, you're talking about the wide receiver out of Ohio State, or Hyatt, the wide receiver out of Tennessee, and sign Odell. We're still in a rebuild despite our record. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't even want to use the term rebuild because I think some fans hear the term rebuild and they're like, how could you be in a rebuild when you're 6-2? I think we're a team that's improving and getting better, and we're definitely ahead of schedule, but we still have a lot of holes. And I think anybody that watches the team could realize that. I think that's why people were pounding the table for a wide receiver. We have the worst wide receiving core in football. We still have a below-average offensive line. But it's trending upwards. You have to figure when Evan Neal gets back out on the football field, but still below average offensive line. The worst wide receiving core in football, and we definitely have holes in the defense. So there is still a lot of building to do on this roster, but there's a lot of growth and there's a lot of hope for the future. And I think we do have some core pieces, which we didn't have with Dave Gettleman when he took over the job. So I definitely think we're not far off if we could fill some more holes next offseason. As far as what you said, listen, I love Hyatt. I'll tell you that right now. And I know I can't even pronounce the guy's name, but the guy on Ohio State, people have been raving about him forever. Hyatt had 5 touchdowns in one game for Tennessee. And then I think he had 2 or 3 touchdowns the next week. So he's been killing it for the Volunteers. As far as Odell goes, I mean, I've been saying it. I've been, very conservative with the way that I've talked about Odell because I know a lot of fans they're all about that. Maybe it does happen. I don't know. I don't know what his market's going to be. I think he'd come back here for the right price. Joe Schoen talked about it today. He talked about that the New York Giants would be open to it, but that's his job at the same time. He's not going to downplay anything. So we'll see. But that would be a cool story if he came back here. Whether or not he could stick around for much longer, who knows? I mean, he's getting up there in age. He's coming off an ACL. We don't know if he's the same player, but it would definitely be intriguing and interesting to see him come back on a 1-year contract and see what he could do. LA Sports. What's going on, man? Thank you. Remember for 23 months. Hey, Chris. Love you from Toronto. What's the percentage chance we get OBJ? Do you want him, and what would it cost? I have no problem bringing back OBJ. None. I'll be the first to say when we traded OBJ, I was too hard on him. I didn't like some of the things that he said about Eli. I didn't like the way that he handled himself in certain aspects, but I was too hard on him. I'll be the first to say I've admitted that before. And listen, we're desperate for wide receiver help right now. I'll tell you right now, I'd jump if he's willing to come here for next to nothing, why not? Of course I take OBJ. I would take you right now, LA Sports, if I felt like you could catch footballs better than David Sills. So, yeah, man, we need all the help we could get at that position right now. Anthony says, what's up, Dana? It could be that Tony's going for a third shifted the wide receiver market, hence why Claypool went for a second, and that Judy price was high. The other thing I'm going to say about this, because you're talking about markets. The other thing I'm going to say about this, think about it like this. It's entirely possible that Joe Schoen has already identified Daniel Jones as a guy that he's okay pushing forward with at least for another year, next year. And he may say to himself, I'm not willing to overcommit and overspend on a wide receiver. But at the same time, by doing that, Daniel Jones isn't going to put up incredible stats. So maybe Daniel Jones is willing to come back here in a very cost-effective salary for the next couple of years, right? And then you get him his weapons and you see where you go from there. Maybe that's wishful thinking on my part, but we'll see. But I was just thinking about that today as well. As far as everything else that you had to say, the shifting of the wide receiver market, I don't know if Tony shifted the wide receiver market. I think that was about fair for Tony. I think maybe we got a little bit more than I thought we would due to the fact that the guy hasn't been on the football field. But at the end of the day, you're still talking about a former first-round pick and a guy that displayed potential while he was out on the football field, albeit in a very limited sample size last year, but at least displayed potential to be a game-breaking wide receiver in the NFL. So I think what we got for Tony was about fair. Maybe you could argue it should have been a fourth instead of a third, but it basically was a fourth anyway because it's a conditional pick, which is like, the 100th overall selection. So I think it was about fair what we got for Tony. I don't know if that necessarily broke the wide receiver market. Claypool went higher than I thought he would. Pittsburgh got more for Claypool than I thought they would. You're talking about like the 40th overall pick. That's high. And I know he had a really good rookie year. He had 9 touchdown receptions. He's got 3 touchdown receptions since. So that was higher than I thought that they would get. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are one of the best organizations in football. So they know what they're doing over there. Pete, my man, what's going on, Pete? I'm just gonna read Stephen Lilly's member chat, and then I'm gonna bring this up, Pete. Stephen Lilly, man, thank you for being a member for 35 months. Hiya, bud. Sick of some blindness in our fan base. People were gassed at getting Kenny Golladay. Look how that worked out. I want to keep it simple, built through the draft. Yeah, that's a great point. Like, let's be honest with ourselves. For everybody that's screaming about getting a wide receiver today, and I would have been pumped just with all you guys had we gotten Jerry Jeudy or had we gotten, somebody who I felt like could make an immediate impact on this football team. But let's be fair. Most of you guys were probably, like Steven just said, jumping through the roof when we got Kenny Golladay. How did that work out? So it doesn't always work out when you try to swing for the fences. Sometimes you have to think long-term. Sometimes you have to think smart. And sometimes you don't try to force something that you don't feel like is in the best interest of your football team. So give this guy an opportunity to build a team. Give Joe Schoen a couple of years to build this team. See where we go. Pete, Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate it, man. He says, I do trust this front office, but we definitely should have added a wide receiver. The NFL is weird. We could have a way better roster next year and win 5 games. And that's a fair way to look at it. I would hope not, because I do think Brian Dable's a really good head coach. And if you have a better roster, you have to think we will not be a 5-win team. But at the same time, Pete, I could get the line of thinking the schedule probably won't be as favorable. Teams around the league may get better, yada, yada, yada. I understand where you're coming from. 6-2 is about as magical of a start as you could get in this league. Should have supported and rewarded this team. And I could get on board with that. I could get on board with that line of thinking, because I said that. I said, had the price been right and had Joe Schoen been able to find a reasonable deal, I think that Joe Schoen should have rewarded the team. In Joe Schoen's defense, I think he wanted to reward the team. But I really feel like he was not willing to pay what the going rate was for some of these playmakers, which I can understand. As much as I hate to say that, because I want Brandon Cooks on this team. I want Jerry Jeudy on this team. I want a playmaker on this team. At the same time, it's his job not to overcommit, not to overspend. So, like you said at the top of that, I'm going to trust this regime. I'm going to trust that this regime identified that the asking price was way too much, and they weren't willing to hurt the future to help the present. But I agree with you. Listen, this team has fought their asses off to get where they are. They've done so without any help at the wide receiver position. Daniel Jones has fought his ass off. Daniel Jones has gone out there with a high ankle sprain. He played in London, 5 days after or 6 days after the guy got hurt. He was out there playing. He's done everything in his power to help this team win. Saquon Barkley, same thing, right? He's got the shoulder every week, right? Tons of these guys have played with injuries. They've given us everything they have. So I would have liked them to get some support if it would have worked out. Unfortunately, it didn't. And hopefully next year, Joe Schoen's able to improve this team. And if those guys are back, he's able to help them even more so. But it's unfortunate. I would have liked the piece, man, but it just didn't work out. But I understand why it didn't. But Pete, man, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it, buddy. Let's see what we got. T. Joe asked, would Getty do it? If so, don't. Yeah, I mean, listen, the only time I could see Getty was super over aggressive at the trade deadline off the top of my head, and obviously he was over aggressive in off seasons, was the Leonard Williams trade. Outside of that, I can't remember. Maybe somebody in the chat could remind me of a trade. I can't remember the last time we made a high profile trade at the deadline. Other than that, I think that was probably the last one in a while, actually, where we traded for Leonard Williams at the trade deadline. That was probably the last high profile trade that I feel like we made at the trade deadline. Richard, he says, hello, sir. Why talk about next year's game left? Went 9-7. We won't get LBJ, Galladay, play down, long ball. Please do the something. Do want this year off pain again. I think you're meaning to say, I don't want to talk about next year. I want to worry about this year's team. I'm assuming that's what you mean, Richard. And if that's what you mean, I understand it. And as a fan, that's all I care about right now. You don't see me on here talking about the draft. You don't see me on Twitter talking about the draft. You don't see me talking about next year's roster. And I understand that's why why you guys are frustrated, the people that wanted them to make a move today. But at the same time, I have to identify that it's Joe Schoen's job to think about next year. It's Joe Schoen's job to think about the year after that. And he thought it was in the team's best decision not to overcommit to a player for the price that was out there. And you don't have to accept it if you're a fan, but that's the line of reasoning. But I hope I was able to get that right, Richard. Pandemonium. Chris, Joe has made it crystal clear. DJ and Saquon not coming back next year. This season is whatever for him. I seen the Bears trade a second pick for Fields. See, that's and I'm curious to get the chat's take on this, because everybody's going to have a different opinion on this. Everybody's going to have a different opinion on this, and certain fans are going to share your mindset, Pandemonium. Certain fans are going to see what the Giants did today, and they're going to say, well, that means Daniel Jones isn't coming back. That means Saquon Barkley isn't coming back. Joe Schoen was not willing to spend X and X amount of, draft picks to go and get a guy like Jerry Jeudy. That means he doesn't believe in Saquon Barkley. That means he doesn't believe in Daniel Jones. That means he's going to blow it up. I look at it completely differently. And I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm not saying that you're right. And I don't know what they're going to do at the end of the day. They may. I mean, I think it's all going to come down to where they pick in the draft, how they identify next year's prospects, how they identify next year's free agent class. But them making this decision does not, to me at least, tell me for sure that Daniel Jones isn't coming back, that Saquon Barkley isn't coming back. That's not the way I took it. But some people are going to take it that way. I want to get some of your guys' takes. Dylan in School says DJ's not coming back. Willem says DJ is staying. DJ and Saquon coming back. Do a poll. Here, my line of thinking is this. It's entirely possible for all the reasons that you're saying, well, this means that they already know what they have in DJ. They may say to themselves, we know that he's worth coming back on a 1-year commitment. We're going to bring him back. We don't need to overspend on a wide receiver to see 8 games of him with more weapons in the offense to be able to come to that conclusion. They may already be like, yeah, listen, under a certain circumstance, if we make the playoffs, we're willing to bring back DJ. And next year we'll get him some help and he'll grow even more. So them not overcommitting to get a guy like Jerry Jeudy doesn't necessarily tell me for sure Daniel Jones is not coming back. That's at least my line of thinking with this. People in the chat are going to have their own. People who don't want DJ are automatically going to jump to that. I'm not saying you're one of those people, Pandemonium. People who don't want Saquon Barkley are automatically going to jump to that. So they're not even worth talking about on this topic. But people that are kind of in the middle that either want DJ back or they don't know if they want DJ back, I'm curious to get their opinions. But I don't necessarily think that this means that Daniel Jones is not coming back. To me, it means that Joe Schoen identified the market and didn't think it was worth hurting the future. It wasn't worth giving it up as much as it would have to hurt the future to help the present. That doesn't mean that he necessarily is sour on Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley. That's my mindset on it. They need the draft picks because they have to pay them. That's who said anything about being a fake fan? I don't know what you're talking about, Dylan. It's cool. But that's just my mindset on the situation. Jeff, man, thank you very much, man. Chris, people need to slow down and let the Giants organization do their job. It's only 8 weeks. Go Big Blue and believe my peeps. Hey, man, at the end of the day, that's all we can do. You got to let the year play out. We're all going to be anxious to see what they're going to do with the players at the end of the year because it's the future of this program. It's the future of this football team. And there's a lot of high-profile players that are playing relatively well that are coming up on contracts that are not part of the new regime. So naturally, there's going to be questions. What are they going to do with Saquon Barkley? What are they going to do with Daniel Jones? Are they going to extend Andrew Thomas, before his contract's up in the offseason? Right? So there's a lot of questions going into the offseason. What are they going to do with Julian Love? But yeah, all you can do is let the season play out, see how these guys play, and at the end of the year, we'll see where the chips fall. What's up, Moose, man? Thanks for popping in the stream, man. Too many maybes for Golladay. Golladay ain't coming back. Galladay's going to be cut first. As soon as the offseason starts, Galladay's going to be cut. What's up, King J, man? Thanks for popping in the stream, man. The New York Giants are not just trying to have a winning season. They're trying to build, exactly. They're trying to build a winning franchise. Couldn't have said it better myself, Shane. Christopher says, my fear is if they make the playoffs, they will not be in a position to draft a good wide receiver in the first 2 rounds because where we are picking, also this tells me they do not believe in Jones. I think they will let him walk after the season. That's your opinion. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying we don't know. I'm saying that this doesn't necessarily mean that. Just because that the Chicago Bears were willing to go out there and overspend, which in my opinion they did to get Chase Claypool, doesn't mean that the New York Giants don't believe in Daniel Jones because they weren't willing to go out there and spend what they felt was way too much to bring in Brandon Cooks, who's going to be 30 years old on a high contract, or to bring in Jerry Jeudy. Maybe the price was much higher than people thought it was. We don't know. So I that's just my opinion on the matter. I'm not, who knows? We'll know at the end of the year. I can't say for certain whether or not they believe in him or not, but I don't think this gives me any indication one way or the other. That's honestly how I feel about it. What's up, Richie James, man? Thanks for popping in the stream, buddy. Let's see what we got. Chris says, what did you think of that pick, Bradshaw? And that was awesome. I saw it this morning when I went on Twitter. That was awesome, and you got to meet Ahmad Bradshaw. Of course, you've shown me the picture with Steve Weatherford before. I'm assuming maybe that's how you got to meet Bradshaw, through Weatherford. Either way, that was awesome, Chris, man. Yeah, man, that was awesome. Ahmad Bradshaw is one of my favorite Giants of all time. So that was awesome. Eric, thank you for being a member for 31 months. He says, I think DJ comes back. They will franchise tag him, and I think Barkley will be back next year. I don't think they're going to franchise tag Jones. I think if they sign Jones, I think it's going to be on like a 2 or 3 year deal, but they could get out after 1 year because the franchise tag, you can't move the money around, and it's committed to $32 million. But I'm still leaning that Jones is coming back. Again, I got to see where we finish in the standings, but if we make the playoffs and win 10 games, yeah, I'm leaning that he's coming back. There's only so many quarterbacks that you could take in next year's draft, and if we're picking that far back, everybody says you could just trade up. Sure, you could. But you're going to have to jump a lot of teams that are needy for quarterbacks. And there's only so many quarterbacks that could go around. And Joe Schoen, with all the other holes that we have on this team, is he willing to give up all that draft capital to move up into the top 8 or 10 or whatever it may be to go up and get his said quarterback? So I'm still leaning he's coming back. But That's all dependent on if we make the playoffs. If we lose the rest of our games, I may feel completely differently. But right now, that's my line of thinking. Let's see what we got. Just pass somebody. Pandemonium says, Chris, love you, bro. But trading a second round pick for a good wide receiver would make a difference in next year's draft. Which second round pick going to be better than Judy? Again, we don't know the price. I don't think Judy was just a second round pick, Pandemonium, because if Chase Claypool went for an early second round pick, which is what the Bears are going to have, right? I think we could agree with that. The Bears are probably going to have a top 40 pick, probably going to be picking top 8 or 9. They're 3-5 right now. I don't think Chase Claypool is getting that team over the hump. Maybe a top 42 or 43 pick. The Giants, if they add a guy like Judy, you're probably looking at what, 53, 54? That's a big difference right there, right? And I think Judy's probably looked at as a better prospect to begin with. So my guess would be Judy was going for at the very least a second and fourth. I think it was more than that based off what Claypool got. I know that there were rumors that it may have been a second and fifth. I think it was more than that. I really do. I would have given up a second and fifth for Judy. I think it was more than that. I really do. But again, we don't even know how they feel about Judy. For all we know, they don't feel like Judy's a guy that fits their offense, the guy that they don't identify that they like long-term, that they don't want to force on this football team, even though I do like him. I do think he would have been a good fit. Let's see. He's a really good route runner, something that I think would fit the scheme well. Just want to make sure I missed what the super sticker was. They don't show it on here, Jordan, man, but I appreciate the $4.99 super sticker, man. Thank you very much, buddy. See, they don't show it. It just says super sticker. I don't have it on my phone right now, but I appreciate it, Jordan, man. Thank you very much, buddy. Thank you for being a good supporter on the channel. Richard says, beginning of the year, Joe said he believes we would rebuild and compete at the same time. He cleared cap space for next year, built draft capital, and we're 6-2. I'll take it. Not really much to complain about, Richard. Not really much to complain about if you're a Giants fan right now, right? We built draft capital. Like you said, right now the New York Giants have a first, second, 2 third-round picks, a 4th-round pick, 2 fifth-round picks, a 6th-round pick, and 2 7th-round picks. They have 11 picks total, I think, right? Because they got 2 thirds, 2 fifths, 2 7s. I feel like they got one more pick that I'm forgetting about because I think they have 11 picks because they had 7 to begin with. They added 2, and then they got 2 comp picks. So they got a 5th-round comp pick, a 7th-round comp pick. Oh, yeah, they added a 6th-round pick as well in the trade. So they got 2 6s, 2 fifths, 2 7s, and 2 thirds. And they got a 1st, 2nd, and 4th. So they got 11 draft picks in next year's draft. And they're still 6-2. They're still very young. They're going to have more cap space next year. So far, so good. They're doing a good job so far. Next year, they're going to have a lot of big decisions to make. But Richard, man, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it, buddy. Bill, man. Bill, man. Thank you, man. Bill, man. Too much. Says, Joe builds us a powerhouse by next year. Unfortunately, She-Eagles and Cowgirls peaking as well. Great time to be a fan. Listen, the NFC East is as good as it's ever been. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's been really good in the past. But in a long time, it's the best it's been in a really long time. Right now, you look at it, the Giants are 6-2. The Cowboys are 6-2. The Eagles are 7-0. Those 3 teams combined are 19-4. Like, it's crazy. And even Washington now is 500. They're 4-4. So the NFC East is definitely peaking. And Dallas's defense is scary. Dallas's defense is young. It's talented. Who knows how much longer Dak's going to be there, right? We'll see. But you figure he's going to be there for at least a few more years. The Eagles got a great young, defensive line, offensive line. They built the team the right way. So, yes, it's going to be a competitive division. But at the end of the day, Bill, if we keep building the right way, eventually we're going to be competing with those teams. We already are. I mean, we're 6-2, but we're going to be able to go toe to toe for those teams once we get this team to where we need it to be. And I have full confidence they're going to continue to build this team the right way. Why should I feel otherwise? So far, so good in terms of the GM, the coach, and everything else. What they've been able to get out of the players that they inherited, what they've been able to get out of some of the guys like Jihad Ward, the cheaper free Fabian Moreau's of the world. What they've been able to get out of those guys, the cheaper free agents they brought in, even a guy like Timon Fox. See what he's doing out there, an undrafted free agent. So far, so good, man. I think they've done a tremendous job, and I think it'll only continue. Jordan says, I'm very proud with where we are. I'm glad we didn't go out and get rid of decent picks for a player, and I feel like we could go far. Hopefully KG comes back and becomes that solid number 1. Like, how great of a story would that be? And I know the chat doesn't want to believe that. I don't believe it. You know how many times I've convinced myself that Kenny Golladay is going to come back and, this is going to be the week that he breaks out. But how great of a story would that be? And we're cutting him next year no matter what. Don't get it twisted. But how great of a story would it be if Kenny Golladay came back after the bye and then not saying he's Tyreek Hill, but suddenly, helped this team win football games, started producing as a wide receiver? That'd be a great story, wouldn't it? For a guy that we all wrote off, if he got that opportunity to come back and be a productive wide receiver alongside Darius Slayton, alongside Wan'Dale Robinson, that'd be a good story. And I hope listen, if we're going to do any kind of damage this year, we're going to need that, right? Because we need all the help we can get at the wide receiver position. And he's really all we got right now. So hopefully he can come back and make some kind of impact. But yeah, I agree. It's wishful thinking. I'm not banking on it, but it would be a great story. It would be a great story. And Ryan says, why can't we ever beat a team the way the Browns beat the Bengals? Yeah, listen, I can't believe they beat the. Now, I tuned into that game at the very end. Were they missing Jamar Chase? Because I thought I read on Twitter today that somebody said that Burrow was without his weapon. So maybe they were without Jamar Chase, but regardless, I tuned into that game like mid to late third quarter, and I saw what the score was. I was blown away. I couldn't believe Chase out 4 to 6 weeks, so he wasn't playing in that game. But still, I couldn't believe the beating that the Browns put on the Bengals. And listen, it's a divisional game. Things can happen week to week in the NFL. If the Giants are going to have an upset, like a beatdown, I should say, I think it's going to come this week. But I don't think it's next week, rather. It's not going to happen this week. We're on a bye. But next week when we play Houston, I'm going. That's why. No, but all kidding aside, obviously not a very good football team, and we're going to be more rested off the bye. 2 weeks to prepare for that game. So if it was ever going to happen, you figure it would happen against Houston. We'll see if we're able to do it. At the end of the day, though, the main reason, Ryan, it's the same reason why we play the way in which we do. We're a limited football team. Let's just call a spade a spade. Let's be honest with ourselves. We're a limited football team. There's a reason that the New York Giants have to play ball control. There's a reason that the New York Giants have to play in the way in which they do. And when you have a team like the Giants, yes, you can win football games that way. You could be an effective football team that way. But you're also limited in terms of being able to blow out teams and open it up. And if you make mistakes, much like we saw this past week, you're not going to be able to win playing that style of football. The Giants did this past week exactly what they've done every other week. Go back and look at the time of possession numbers. The second half, we possessed the ball for like 10 more minutes. We had long sustaining drives. We just didn't get it in for 6, and we had 2 bad fumbles. But when you play that style of football, you're not going to blow anybody out. The Giants are playing a style of football where if they don't make mistakes, if they don't fumble punts, and they don't kill themselves with penalties, they give themselves an opportunity basically to be able to be in the fourth quarter against any team in the NFL. If they're able to sustain drives and pick up key third downs, which is what they've been able to do this year. But last week, of course, they had the 2 fumbles, so on and so forth. But when you have a limited football team like ours, look around the league right now. Look at the wide receiving corps in the NFL. We have the worst. So you're asking me why we're not blowing out teams. That's why. We don't got the firepower. We're going to these fights. We're going up against AK-47s, and we got a BB gun. So we're masking our deficiencies. We're finding a way to stay in the match. And at the end, we try to land the knockout. That's basically been our strategy. And it's worked for the most part. But we're not built like a team that's going to be able to blow out a team, at least on a consistent basis. Anything could happen from within a week. Jameson, man, what's going on, man? Thanks for popping in the stream, buddy. LA Lou says, happy for your turnaround, but be patient. The G-Men are having a Rams 2017 type turnaround. Give Shane and Dable a chance to cook. Just enjoy it. Hey, man, that's what I'm doing. I'm enjoying the ride, and next year is going to be even more exciting when I get to see how they really start to build this team. Because next year is really going to be where they really put their markings on this team. Right now, this is still a Gettleman team. It's still a Gettleman team with sprinkles of Shane, right? Look around all the impact players on this team. The majority of them are still Gettleman guys. Barkley, Jones, Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, Adoree Jackson, Xavier McKinney, Azeez Ojulari whenever he plays, Andrew Thomas. So we haven't really we got a Shane sprinkle this year. Got a little sprinkle. Next year we get the Shane donut. Right now we just got the sprinkles on top of the donut. Next year we get the donut. Pandemonium says, Chris, stop. The only wide receiver in the books next year is Wan'Dale. So Joe is going to draft 4 wide receivers. No, I didn't say that. When did I say that? Stop what? He's going to have to have wide receivers. He's not going to go into next year without a roster. As a matter of fact, Pandemonium, I could argue that because of how many wide receivers we have to add, you could actually make an argument that that's even more reason to think they won't take a quarterback. Because then you'd have to use all that capital to go up and get one, and you wouldn't be able to add any wide receivers to this team. But next year they're gonna sign it. They're probably gonna sign a mid-tier free agent wide receiver. Maybe they bring back one of the guys that are currently on the team on a cheap deal, a guy like Slayton if he's willing to come back on a cheap deal, a guy like Richie James. I don't know. They fill out a couple of cheap veterans. They're probably, like I said, going to sign a mid-tier free agent wide receiver, and they're going to draft one early in next year's draft. That's what they're going to do. They're going to add a mid-tier free agent wide receiver, or they're going to trade for one, an upper echelon wide receiver, and they're going to draft one early in next year's draft. That's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do. But yeah, no to Richie James. You're right. No to Richie James. You're right. John Kim says, if DJ and Barkley continue to play a hell of a season, they aren't coming back. They're going to take a hometown discount. DJ deserves better. I think Schoen is building draft capital to move up to get his quarterback. We'll see. I mean, I don't know. That's assumptions. And I understand why you feel that way. We'll see at the end of the year. That's all I could tell you. That's all I could tell you. It all comes down to where we're picking. It all comes down to how he evaluates these quarterbacks. And it all comes down to the price as well. You know, what if the asking price is far too high? You know, so you don't know. You don't know. We'll see when we get there. We'll see when we get to the draft. Everybody's going to have their opinions in terms of what we're going to do with the quarterback, the running back, the wide receiver. We'll see at the end of the year. That's all I could tell you. Right now, I'm actually leaning the opposite. If we make the playoffs, I think we're sticking with Jones. Not long-term, but I think he's getting a short-term extension. But my opinion is entitled to change, and it may at the end of the year. But right now, that's the way I feel. Luke Dog, trust in Joe. Yeah, that's all you can do right now if you're a fan, or at least give him the opportunity. Jay says, early draft question, but what should our first-round pick be? Cornerback, linebacker, wide receiver, etc. It's early, but any your opinion? Wide receiver right now. If you were asking me to do a mock draft right now for the New York Giants, without knowing what we do in free agency, without knowing what the rest of these players do on this team for the rest of the year, wide receiver. That to me is the most obvious need right now on this team. Obviously, there's other needs. You know, cornerback, which I still think it's a need. Defensive tackle, not that it's a need in the first round. Interior offensive line, coverage linebacker. You know, we've got needs all over this roster. But if you ask me what's the number one need right now, and it would probably be appropriate to take a wide receiver in the projected draft slot where I think I'm gonna have us, wide receiver. Stephen Lilly, our fans got to remember, big difference between playing Madden and actually doing the real job. Maybe they thought Judy wasn't good enough for the future. Yeah, or maybe they felt like he didn't fit the scheme, or maybe they felt like the asking price was just far too high. Maybe Joe Schoen says to himself, all right, I'll wait 9 more weeks. I'll sign a wide receiver that I think is comparable to him in free agency this offseason. I'll draft a wide receiver, and I won't have to give up draft picks that I think is comparable to Judy. We don't know. So give them the opportunity to build their team. That's it, man. This isn't Madden, like you said. Chris says it was a meet and greet at the bar. Oh, okay. So it was like an organized meet and greet for Ahmad Bradshaw. Cool, man. Maybe I'll go to one of those one time. Let me know. Next time there's one of those, if it's in the area that around where I live, maybe I'll show up and meet you there at one of those giant meet and greets. That'd be cool. Fabian says we already accomplished way above than most expected. Well, that's for sure. But we still got a whole season ahead of us, man. And I look at our schedule. I'm not giving up. Just because we didn't add a wide receiver, I still think we can make the playoffs. We're 6-2. We've got the Houston Texans. Okay? We've got the Detroit Lions who stink, and they just traded away their best offensive weapon with TJ Hockenson, or arguably their best offensive weapon with TJ Hockenson. Okay? We've got the Colts with a backup quarterback, and we've got Washington twice. You tell me we can't win at least 3 of those games? 3 of those games gets us 9 wins. That probably gets you in the playoffs. 4 of those games gets you 10 wins. And that's without beating a team like Dallas or beating the Eagles once. So I still see a clear path to the playoffs. Nikki Saab says wide receivers this draft are slot 7 out of the top 10. That's the receiver from LSU. Yep, LSU is a mid to late first and will be the best available. Money on him versus LSU versus Bama on Saturday. I actually watched him, Nikki, last week or the week before that. I think he was hurt or he was a little bit dinged up because they were talking about how they weren't using him in the same capacity that they normally would because he wasn't 100% himself. But they were raving about him. They were saying how talented he is. And maybe that'll be a guy the New York Giants target in this year's draft. We'll see. And, of course, they could always trade up, right? We saw the Eagles do it to go up and get their wide receiver with Devontae Smith. So we'll see. But I definitely think if we're not going quarterback, I think that's where we're going. Bob says the game out of the bye against Houston will tell me a lot. Though we won't blow them out, they are a team we should beat, and I trust Joe and Dable. My new motto is trust the vision. I like it. I like it. I like it. I'll be disappointed if they don't beat Houston. And Houston's played tough this year. They've played tougher than in week to week, they've played tougher than I think they would sometimes. They have kept it close against certain opponents I didn't think they would. So that could be a sneaky competitive game, but I think it's a game we absolutely should win, especially with an extra week to prepare. Vin, if Judy was second and fourth or fifth, what would DJ Moore have cost us? It's tough for me to say, Vin, because DJ Moore's already under contract. So I don't know, Jerry Judy's still on his rookie deal. And I think his rookie deal, you would still have guys in the chat. Let me ask you guys, what is this? This is Judy's third year, right, guys? I think it's his third year. And if it is his third year, that means you have him under rookie control another year plus the fifth year option. So you have him under control technically for 2 more years on the rookie deal. A guy like DJ Moore has already signed his extension. Next year, he's due to make $20 million against the cap, then $25 million the year after that. So, yeah, it's his third year. So he's still got 2 more years under rookie control. So DJ Moore might actually cost you less if he was available due to his contract than Jerry Jeudy, or at least it would maybe be fairly comparable. I don't know for a fact, but Jeudy is more valuable in that sense because he's under a rookie contract for the remainder of this year and 2 more years after that. DJ Moore's already gotten his contract extension. So they may be fairly comparable in terms of what the price would have been. I don't know, but I don't even know if DJ Moore was really available. You know, you've heard rumors that he could be, but I don't know if in fact he was available. Let's see what we got. And Eric says, I think our first pick in the draft, we draft a wide receiver for DJ. Do you agree? Right now, that's where my head's at. Yes. You know, and again, my opinion may change in 10 weeks, but right now, yeah, that's where my head's at. If I was doing a mock draft today, I don't know which one. I haven't been paying enough attention to college football because we've been playing really well this year. But yeah, that's where my head's at right now is wide receiver. You know, where I'm projecting where we're probably going to be picking, what our most immediate need is. Again, before free agency, so many other variables. But yes, right now, I think wide receiver is where I'd be leaning if I had to do a mock draft today. Xerox. Hi, buddy. Sorry. No, dude, are you kidding me? Says, sorry, I've been AFK lately. Nice seeing the Giants competing. Julian Love has been our best player this year. Unbelievable. I don't know if he's been our best player, but he's definitely been among one of our best players. He's been really good. He's been very active. He fits the defense very well. I thought he would. And much like Dexter Lawrence, Julian Love, I think, has finally gotten like a defined position. And I think that was a mistake that the prior regime made, both with Dexter Lawrence and Julian Love. Even though Julian Love, I understand, is very valuable. They called him duct tape. You could play him wherever. I think the fact that they're both playing in a defined spot, Dexter Lawrence playing more as a nose tackle this year, obviously now Julian Love is a defined safety. I think that has allowed them to get the best out of their abilities. But yeah, he's playing great this year. And he's going to be another guy that that'll be a question mark at the end of the year. Did the New York Giants bring him back? There's only so much money to go around. So that'll be another question. Of course, they drafted Dane Belt and they still have Xavier McKinney. How much money are you going to put into the safety position? But it's going to depend on what his market is at the end of the year, I suppose. But he's played great. He's a captain. He's well respected from within the locker room. I hope he's back. I just hope that he fits the budget. Gavin, thank you very much, man. Number one wide receiver or offensive line looked bad. Joey B looked almost shocked. I'm not shocked. Yeah, not bad. Joey B looked. Oh, you're talking about Joe Burrow, you mean? Look how bad Joe Burrow. Yeah. Oh, I misread what you were saying. I thought you were talking about the Giants. You're saying without a number one wide receiver or an offensive line, look how bad Joe Burrow looks. Almost shocked. I'm not shocked. Yeah, listen, at the end of the day, look around the league with a lot of these quarterbacks, right? When they don't have weapons. Look how they look without weapons. Look how they look with weapons. You think Geno Smith looks this way if he's not playing with Seattle with the weapons they got over there? Let's be real. You think Tua Tagovailoa looks the way he's looking without Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle? You can point to any quarterback. So, of course, weapons are important. Of course, an offensive scheme is equally as important. A good offensive line, it all goes hand in hand. But yeah, Joe Burrow, without his weapons, look how he looked. You need help, for sure. Russell says, yen donation. Thank you, man. Shane has 3 years to let DJ Saquon Barkley go. No sense. Winning right now with them. Replacing them with rookies who wait 2 more years to develop. And that's going to be the other thing. There's fans that they don't think from the context of a general manager. They don't think from the context of an owner. If the Giants go out there and win 11 or 12 games, and Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones have a lot to do with that, and they show a lot of growth, I'm not telling you they're going to give them 5-year commitments, But it's a lot easier said than done to say, well, no, now you got to draft your quarterback. You got to trade away all these assets off a 10, 11 win season in which the team showed a lot of hope. You built a winning culture. Get rid of Saquon Barkley. Like, you're going to go from a team that wins 11 games potentially to a team that wins 6. And then you're starting all over again. So it's easier said than done. So we'll see at the end of the year, but we'll see we'll see how many wins we have. And then I will give you guys my honest opinion as to what they're going to do. But obviously I think we're trending towards the playoffs. MY Giants 26 says, disappointed a little, but we could bring in free agency and draft our wide receiver. Excited. Very, how many picks we have in 2020? 11. If you include the comp picks, we have 11. We got a first, a second, 2 thirds, a fourth, 2 fifths, 2 sixths, and 2 sevenths. We got 11 picks if you include the comp picks. So, yeah. Let's see. We got let's see. Richard, how long it take Eli to be good? 4 years. Same with Danny. Yeah, I will say I do think Eli definitely showed hints of being good earlier on in his career. But yes, even his Super Bowl year, for being honest, in the regular season, he wasn't great. He was good in terms of situational football throughout his early part of his career. Had a lot of comeback wins here and there, but in terms of being a consistent, good quarterback, even that year he wasn't until the playoffs hit. And then obviously the next year he started to, improve. Obviously he had a great supporting cast with that offensive line, but yeah, Eli Manning took time to grow. There's no denying that. And I'm Eli Manning's biggest fan there is, but it took him some time to grow as a quarterback. Mike says, entertainer, you also have to check out Jordan Addison from USC, and I think his name is Quentin Johnson from TCU. Good. I have seen Addison. I haven't seen him a ton, but I've watched a good amount of USC games, and I have seen him. I'm looking at their quarterback, if I'm being honest, when I watch their games. He's not even draft eligible this year. He's draft eligible the following year, but I just love watching him play. And if there was one elite quarterback in college football this year, I think it's him. But he's not even draft eligible this year. But I have seen Addison because I've watched some USC games. I haven't seen Quentin Johnson. Actually, that's a lie. I have not watched TCU games, but I've seen, I think it's Mace on Twitter. He constantly posts highlights of Quentin Johnson because I think that's like his favorite wide receiver in this year's draft class. So I have seen that, but I haven't sat down and watched his games. But I'll definitely look at these prospects as the draft approaches. Lancey says Jackson played good. You're talking about Adoree Jackson, I'm assuming? If that's who you're talking about, Lancey? Yeah, I thought he played well this past week. He's played well this year. Both corners played well this past week, in my opinion. They got burnt from time to time, but when you factor in the wide receivers they were going up against, they played about as good as you could have hoped for. But yes, I thought he played well. Bob, that's why I love you, Chris. You are a realist, and you have a high Giants IQ, and you're on board with my motto: trust the vision. I mean, I try to. I like to think I at least have a pretty good Giants IQ, but I try to listen to everybody's opinion, and I try to give mine. Sometimes you're going to agree with it, sometimes you're not. But yeah, listen, I'm definitely all for the long-term approach, but also trying to blend the here and now, especially when the team's 6-2. So it's a tough balance. I'll be the first to say it's a very tough balance to be able to balance it all out. I'm gonna talk to a couple people in the chat, and then I really wanted to play for you guys. I meant to play it earlier, but you guys, the chat's just booming. But I meant to play it earlier because a lot of you guys probably haven't even seen it yet. Most of you probably have, but I wanted to play the 13-minute clip from Joe Schoen. I got it right here. Matter of fact, let me pull it up right now. I'll still talk to you guys for a couple minutes before I start playing it, but I'll get it set to play. I wanted to play it. I thought it was really, it was cool. Some of the things that he had to say about the team now, the future. And it's important as a Giants fan to see this, right? And what he has to say about the current team, the future of the team. So I'm going to play that. I'll briefly stop it from time to time and just give my opinion on some of his talking points and what he had to say. John Kim says, need to extend Andrew Thomas as soon as possible. I agree with that. I've said that since basically before the year started. What's up, Kush? Odell will be a Giant. He might be. I don't have that clip in this interview, but that was another interview today from Joe Schoen. I talked about that earlier in the stream, and we'll see, but he might be. What's going on, unknown user, man? Thanks for popping in the stream. I'm going to be in Lot L. I got to talk to Justin. I know he tailgates in Lot L, so that's where I'm going to be November 13th for the Houston game. And I'm going to be there with my brother. Going to be getting there hopefully pretty early. How much cap do we have next year? It's too early to project that right now. I mean, roughly 55, 60 million, but we're going to cut Golladay. You could extend Leonard Williams to give yourself more money, but then you have a lot of players that you have to retain. So it's kind of silly to look at the cap right now until we know which players we're going to bring back and then, analyze the contracts that they sign and then we'll have a better idea going into free agency what they may or may not be able to do in terms of adding to the roster. What's up, Kuda Bang, man? Thanks for popping in the stream, man. What game, Dylan? Oh, the Giants game? Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. He'll be solo, obviously, because I'm going to be at the game. But, yeah, he'll be streaming the game. Chris, how's the weather looking for the Texans? I have no. That's 13 days from now. Even if I looked, it wouldn't matter right now. Danny Thomas, thoughts on signing T.Y. Hilton? He could be another deep threat downfield. T.Y. Hilton, I mean, when's the last time T.Y. Hilton played? I mean, I haven't heard his name in a bit. I think he played last year, but he hasn't been much of a factor in a while. Let me take a quick look at T.Y. Hilton. People have brought his name up a few times in my streams. He played last year. He had 331 yards, 3 touchdowns. How old is he? He's born in 1989, so he's over 30. So, he's not a difference maker. Not at this stage in his career. There's a reason the guy's still a free agent. He's not a difference maker. He's like 32, 33 years old, whatever he is. So, I'm gonna go no on that. But anyway, I want to play this for you guys. I'm gonna mute myself while I play it, and I'll stop it every now and again, and we'll talk about some of the things that obviously Joe Schoen had to say regarding the football team.
Presented by Fordham University, an official higher education partner of the New York Giants. All right, Joe, great to see you. Thanks for taking the time. Exciting times right now for Giants fans and, of course, for the Giants organization. For you, a busy time with the trade deadline this week. How was that for you? Were you busy? Was it quiet? Were you hoping that it was going to be busier?
Yeah, no, it's the trade deadline. It's a date where we can no longer trade, but we're constantly making calls around the league, whether it's August in the preseason, throughout the regular season. So it just, it's a culmination today at 3:59. You can no longer trade players, but we've been in constant communication with a lot of teams. So
yeah, well, you guys got ahead of the curve, obviously, with the Tony trade last week. Kind of getting ahead of the frenzy. But I'm just curious, in that position group with the wide receiver group, trading Tony, you had some injuries with Shepard, obviously, with Galladay being hurt. Did you feel any added pressure to try to look at that one position group to see if you could add?
Yeah, we were looking at, when we make these phone calls, we were looking at all positions, receiver obviously being one of them. And if there was an opportunity where, a player became available and it made sense in terms of the value we place on the player and what was being asked, then yeah, we would have definitely pursued that if there was something available.
The last time that, you spoke to the national media, you were talking about managing expectations. And now here you are sitting at 6-2. How tough is it as a GM to sit there and say, wow, okay, we're 6-2. You know what? I didn't think I was going to have to make a move. But now that our record, now that we're winning, how does that influence or change the way that you want to impact the team?
Yeah, I think, from the day I took the job, it was, hey, we're going to compete today and build for tomorrow. And it has to make sense. And again, part of.
So right there, he said exactly what you guys were saying in the stream earlier. Compete today, build for tomorrow. And I think that was his mission going into the year. That was his mission going into the trade deadline. He's all about competing right now, but he's not going to go all in. He's building for tomorrow. He's building long term. That's what he had to say. He said exactly what I thought he was going to do. He took calls. He scoured the market. He saw what the prices were for players around the league. And he didn't think that they fit what the New York Giants valued them at. You could take him at his word or not. So far, in my opinion, since he's had the job, he's been pretty honest. So I think he went out there. I think he looked at what these players were worth, or what he thought they were worth, and what these teams thought they were worth, and it didn't match up. So the Giants decided to stand pat, and he wants to compete for today to build for tomorrow. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. He's got to think long term as a GM. But let's keep going.
For my job, whether it's the draft, where you put a guy on the draft board, what you pay a free agent, if you trade for a player, like you have to assign a value. And several meetings with my staff on, where we saw some players that were available and what value we saw them at and what made sense in the short term and long term. And if that doesn't marry up, then, you don't want to shop hungry. And, I thought we took a good approach to this time of year, and, it just made sense. I'm ecstatic. We're 6-2, and, I don't know if one player at any one position is going to change things exponentially, but, I thought we had a sound process, and, it played out, the way it played out.
Yeah, 6-2, a lot of excitement, a lot of positives. One of those positives has been the play of Daniel Jones. I know before the season started, there was a lot of expectations, and everybody wanted to know how he was going to handle this new offense and this new system. How do you feel about the way he's played?
Yeah, I think Daniel's played well. I mean, it's 5 game-winning drives or fourth quarter comebacks, through 8 games, which is impressive. So, I think Daniel's done a very good job. It's the toughest position to play in the NFL next to center, probably, right? But learning another system for him, getting comfortable with not only the coaching staff, but again, there have been injuries at receiver, and it's a little bit been a revolving door. Now we have some injuries at tight end, so. He's been a constant out there. He's been steady. He fought through the injury, was able to play against Green Bay. So he showed some toughness and, his leadership. So I'm pleased with where Daniel is and how he's been playing.
I feel like
So there you go. Take it for what you will. A lot of you guys seem to think what happened during the trade deadline indicates that they're moving on from Jones. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Couple key words that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll have talked about since they've been here: tough, dependable, leadership. He said all those things in that sentence. So far, Daboll seems like he loves Daniel Jones when he talks about it in the press conferences, right? He's gone above and beyond to defend him. Maybe that's just coach speak. Maybe that's just GM speak. We'll find out at the end of the year. But it sounds like thus far, based off the circumstances that Daniel Jones has been provided with, Joe Schoen likes what he's seen at the quarterback position. Let's keep going.
tough is a good description for this team. Guys are playing through a lot of things. Offensive line's banged up. DJ's playing through some injuries. Saquon's been playing a little banged up as well. What are your thoughts on him? You've seen him as an opponent, but now as one of your players, how do you feel like he's played this season? What are you surprised by?
Yeah, I think Saquon's done a really good job. I'm really not surprised by anything because he had an outstanding spring, and we played him when I was in Buffalo in 2019, and he was a game plan guy. When you go into play against him, like you got to pay attention to where 26 is. So, it showed toughness, battling through injuries throughout the year, which everybody has, but his leadership, he's a captain, and I've been really pleased with Saquon.
Let's talk about your rookie draft class. Obviously you draft rookies and you say, hey, look, we want you to contribute in some way, shape, or form. With Thibodeau going 5, Neal going 7, you knew those guys were going to be starters. But some of these other guys have really made an impact. Josh Azudu makes his first start up in Seattle. Micah McFadden gets his first sack. Talk about the class and all of the progress that they've made and the contribution they made to the team.
Yeah, I do a little rookie report. I've done it for a long time just based on draft classes. And right now we're 4th in rookie play time, which
That's pretty impressive. I wouldn't have thought that. And granted, the New York Giants had a lot of draft picks this year. I think they had like 10 or 11 maybe. I can't remember how many picks we had, but we had a lot of picks. But all their rookies have been hurt, right? I mean, like I said earlier in the stream, I think there's only been 2 rookies that have not missed any time whatsoever. McKeithen got hurt before the year started. I think Dane Belton missed a week or 2 at the beginning of the year. He certainly missed a lot of the preseason when he got hurt in training camp. Obviously, Kayvon missed the first 2 games. Evan Neal's now missed some time. But we have the 4th most. Bellinger's now missed some time. But we have the 4th most rookie playing time in the NFL. And some of that may have to do with some of the undrafted free agents we brought in as well. Guys like Timon Fox. But that was pretty cool. I didn't realize we have the 4th most played minutes of rookies in the NFL.
Which is really good. And, we're obviously having some positive results from those guys, and they're learning how to win. So I'm excited about the whole crew. Obviously, the injury bug, I think all of them have been injured at one point or another, except for one. But, when Kayvon came back, it took him a couple of weeks to get his feet back under him, but he's put together a good stretch. Evan's been steady. Wandell's coming back now. We're going to get him more involved. Azudu, again, he waited his turn. He starts off, you got to face Jeffrey Simmons week 1. Yeah. That can be a tough task for a 10-year vet, but didn't get down, kept competing, and his chance came and did a good job. And then Bellinger and Belton, both key contributors, one on defense, one on offense. And, Bellinger's been, probably one of the most improved players since we've got here. Like, true pro already, takes his craft seriously, and we're hoping to get him back soon. And then, Micah McFadden, special teams, playing defense. The best thing I could say about these guys is they're all our, culture guys. They're smart, tough, and dependable. Again, hopefully very good foundational pieces as we build from here.
As you're watching those young players and their development, they grow, you have to give credit to the coaching staff. How impressed have you been with this coaching staff to find ways to not just grow the players, but teach them how to win football games at the end of it in the 4th quarter with the game on the line?
Yeah, no, it's been, again, with the draft class, the ability, as I said earlier, to win games and get valuable experience playing games. As we're setting the foundation, learning to win is part of the deal. But the coaching staff's done a phenomenal job. You know, we're constantly turning over the practice squad, even the active roster. You know, we did a study earlier this week. You know, we're leading the league in terms with 12 players that, you know, weren't with us through August, and we signed September on. 12 players have played line of scrimmage snaps offensively or defensively, and that's an testament to the coaching staff and their ability to stay late with these.
I just realized I was muted that whole time. See that I'm not used to hitting the mute button. I think I was just muted the whole time. It's not off anymore. You can hear me now. But hey, man, I just figured I would show it. Probably not everybody in here got an opportunity to watch this. And I think it's cool to get to hear what Joe Schoen had to say. It's about 12 and a half minutes. You know, and I think he went over a lot of, you know, good talking points. Obviously, you take all this with a grain of salt. You know, it's the general manager's job not to, you know, give too much information about how the team feels and so on and so forth. But I think it's still cool to, you know, to hear what the general manager has to say halfway through the season. I think this is something that Dave Gettleman never did. So I thought it was cool to get a look inside, you know, how he felt at the trade deadline, how he feels about the team going forward, certain players on the roster. I'm not muted anymore, right? No. Ellerson Smith is back, by the way. But sorry, Fabian. We're going to get back to it. We got about another 6 minutes, Fabian, and then class is going to be over. Let's see.
These players, get them up to speed in terms of the offensive game plan or defensive game plan. And Fabian Moreau, Jalen Smith, guys like that weren't here that can go out and start for you and play meaningful snaps. You know, that's important. Tyree Phillips is a guy that started for us at right tackle. You know, we claimed him in early September from Baltimore. So that, along with, you know, second half adjustments, game plans, I think, you know, the coaching staff has done a great job. And again, a testament to Dayball and, you know, his hiring process. And, you know, whether it was a veteran coach like Wink or a younger coach like Kafka, I think identified really good candidates. And I think we're seeing the benefits of that now.
Let's go back to those 12 players you're talking about, because your job, obviously, all right, someone goes down, all right, I got to find somebody. Take us through that process. What do you lean on the most? Do you go back to film, or, you know, or what if you have a guy that really you don't have a lot of film on? Do you contact the former teams, and how do you kind of whittle that whole down as far as who you're going to sign at that position of need?
Yeah, we're constantly looking, and it is a testament to, you know, Brandon Brown, Tim McDonald, Dennis Hickey, Chris Rossetti, you know, the, you know, pro personnel department, identifying these guys, and they do a great job. They're my filter system. When the waiver comes out each night, they let me know if there's somebody I need to get my eyes on. And it started with our process that we had in place in the preseason. You know, we had coverage on the, you know, 1,200 plus players that were all cut. We trimmed that down to players we liked. You know, we claimed 4 or 5 players at the final cut down, and then that turns into our emergency list as injuries occur. You know, who can we get on other practice squads? You know, who becomes available that maybe we want to add to our practice squad. I think of our 17 practice squad guys, 7 guys were here in camp. So there's also 10 more new guys on our practice squad, you know, that we've had to flex up as well. So, you know, credit to my personnel department. They've done a great job identifying players and continue to turn the back end of the roster and the practice squad over so we can continue to elevate our depth and competition.
Yeah, I know they'll appreciate the shout out, your personnel squad.
They do a great job.
That's your glam squad behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You don't really have an official head of college scouting, correct? How is that worked out, and how much do you have to lean on those guys, and who's really leading the whole college draft aspect?
Yeah, so, you know, Brandon Brown is the assistant GM. He's kind of over the pro and the college, as well as Tim McDonald, who's, you know, director of player personnel. And then Dennis Hickey is kind of manning the college staff right now. He's on the road, you know, weekly. He's in contact with all of our scouts. Again, same type of deal, filter the information up to me. You know, we've got, you know, top 10 lists that I get on a weekly basis by position, you know, where the players are. So that kind of leads to where I go when I hit the road. You know, who do I need to go see and who do I need to watch? So Dennis has done a great job. And then, you know, I'll do a Zoom every other week with the college scouts, just make sure they're up to speed on what's going on with the roster. If they have any questions on why we're doing things or something that may have come up, just, you know, I've been on the road before. You can kind of feel like you're out of sight, out of mind. I want to make sure they know they're a big part of what we're doing and keep them in the loop on how things are going on the roster.
All right, so let's peel back the curtain for fans a little bit, because they probably think, all right, you're the GM, so you got Saturday to chill, you know, Sunday's the game. That's not the case at all. Like, what's your weekend like when you're traveling to go see some of these college games?
Yeah, so I'll try to do the film during the week. So, you know, if I'm going to see, let's say Alabama, Tennessee, a couple of weeks ago. I went to that game, and I went to Auburn, Mississippi the same day. So I'll try to do the film, throughout the week. So when I get to the game, I have a plan on who I'm looking at while I'm there. First off, do I need to be there before I make my.
Just this is encouraging, by the way. Could you imagine Dave Gettleman in the same day? Could you imagine Dave Gettleman in the same day going to an Alabama-Tennessee game and then flying over to go to the Auburn game in the same day to scout out the players? So, and we already knew this about Joe Schoen. We've read that in several articles that he's been doing that and he's been putting in the legwork. But that's encouraging, right? That he's been scouting all these players and been doing his homework long before next year's season. So yeah, that's encouraging, right? He's talking about scouting all these players during the offseason, but let's keep going.
My schedule. And then once I'm there, what do I need to get out of it? So I'll identify the 5 to 10 players I need to look at. A lot of the pregame is a chance to get to see guys up physically. Do they look like an NFL player? Do they move like an NFL player? And then they always put us up in the press box to watch the game. So I'll do that again. I try to see. I get that top 10 list from the scouts on a weekly basis, and I'm chipping away at it. I'm not going to see everybody, but I'm going to have a good, probably 4th round and above. I'll have set eyes on those guys probably by, the end of the college season.
So you're having a chance to see them down on the field. Do you get a chance to interact with them at all, or is it just kind of, hey, just visually?
Yeah. Usually just visually, especially at the big schools. Sometimes the area scouts, if you go through a Lenore Ryan or a Fordham or one of the smaller schools, they may bring the kid in. You can have personal interaction. At the bigger schools, typically at an all-star game or the combine or a pro day is the first time you can really have a personal interaction with the players.
So when you're down there and you're watching some of these players, and you're obviously talking to the coaches as well, do you keep all this? Do you keep notes on all this stuff? And then as the draft comes and the combine and all that this is just like another layer of evaluating them?
Yeah, exactly. It's it's a constant evaluation from how they look in the fall on tape, how they look in person, how they do at an all-star game. Once you interview them, you can bring them in the building if you want on a 30 visit. So yeah, it's just you're continuing to add to the Rolodex of that player in terms of who they are as a player, person, and then your personal interactions.
You mentioned Alabama. I think pretty much every year you could go to Alabama and you're going to find some good athletes. But aside from that, are there any other players that have really jumped out at you early on from next year's class?
Yeah. there's some players. I'm gonna keep those in here though. But yeah, no, it's gonna be a good draft. There's a couple positions that may be perceived needs for us and that are a little bit deeper. And again, we take all that into account as you're going to the trade deadline. We've talked.
Now we won't be muted anymore. But that's it. That's all I'll show you guys. But I just wanted to go over his press conference for the most part. There's like a minute left in it, but there wasn't much more after that. Some of the things that he had to say regarding scouting and how he handled the trade deadline and how he feels about current players on the roster, whether it be Saquon Barkley, whether it be Daniel Jones. So yeah, not too much to take out of it, but you don't expect your GM to give you too much in a midseason meeting. He talked about how he's happy with the team, but how he has a long-term vision, like he said all along, and how I expect him to continue to build this team going forward. Noah says, what's going on, Exotic Man? Thanks for popping in. Noah says, only if there were 2 Senior Bowls. Of course, the reference to Dave Gettleman, who loved the Senior Bowl. Anytime there was an MVP of the Senior Bowl, you knew that the New York Giants were sure to draft them. And Kuda says, yeah, I know there's a pressure too, Mike. And there was a couple of clips out of that where he talked about Odell Beckham. That was a big one that got a lot of views. And then there was another one where I think he talked further in detail about Daniel Jones, but I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what he said. You listen to Joe talk and you realize Gettleman was there. He certainly gives you a lot more confidence. And listen, I always got a kick out of some of the things that Gettleman said. He was entertaining in his press conferences, but certainly doesn't come across as, in terms of being as well organized and as well prepared as a guy like Joe Schoen. Joe Schoen certainly seems like a really intelligent guy that knows what he's, that knows what he's doing. And hopefully he can continue to push forward with it. Anthony Richardson is bad. I've to be fair, I haven't watched enough of Anthony Richardson. I know some people love him, some people hate him. Edward says, look at the first 3 years numbers. Look at Eli's rookie year compared to Daniel's. What are you talking about? Comparing the 2 quarterbacks? I don't even like comparing the 2 quarterbacks. Let's just see Daniel continue to improve. I don't think it's fair to Daniel Jones to compare him to the greatest quarterback in franchise history. Let him build his own legacy. Let him continue to grow and get better. I don't think it's fair to Daniel. Bob, what's going on, man? After hearing Shane speak, I will say it again. Trust the vision. He is very smart football-wise. He just seems very smart in general, football-wise, just in general. He just seems really smart. So, yeah, give him an opportunity to build this team as the way he sees fit. I think we could all agree that Brian Dable certainly comes across as a very smart football mind as well. And I think Dable talked about that too. I think I don't know if it was a press conference today or if it was on the radio. Dable also talked about how him and Shane are always talking with one another, which is exactly what you want in a head coach and a GM. They got a very good working relationship. A lot of players on this team that we love are Gettleman guys. Hey, listen, Isaiah, I'm the first to say it, man. I got destroyed for, giving Gettleman as long of a leash as I did. I'll be the first to say, man, Gettleman, he did a lot of bad things. But he also did some good that some people don't recognize. But somebody actually asked me on Twitter yesterday. Actually, they didn't ask me specifically. They had a question, and I just answered it because I saw it pop up on my timeline where he asked about how Dave Gettleman was as a drafter. And in retrospect, in hindsight, when you see what some of these players are doing, and obviously Gettleman was known as being a scout. That was the strength. That's what he was good at, right? He was known as a very good scout. I would say his drafting was about a 7.5. But the rest of his GM was not good, whether it be roster construction, whether it be free agency, whether it be contracts. He wasn't good in that aspect, whether it be head coaches that he hired, things like that, right? And who knows how responsible he was. Maybe some of it was the owner, but regardless, he struggled in that area. He was pretty solid as a drafter in hindsight. Yeah, he had some good picks, but overall as a GM, he was not very good. Not very good. Steve Jones, that's all well and good. Well, Julian Love is good, right? Julian Love was good. B.J. Hill turned out to be a good player. He drafted him. Maybe he's not great on the Giants, but he drafted him. He turned out to be a pretty good player. Darius Slayton for a 5th-round pick is a good player. Nick Gates for an undrafted free agent is a good player. You could find a couple here and there. But at the end of the day, he drafted four drafts with the Giants. Dexter Lawrence is one of the best interior defensive linemen in football. Andrew Thomas is arguably the best left tackle in football. Saquon Barkley is arguably the best running back in football / playmaker in football. Daniel Jones is an improving quarterback. So he had some hits. But overall, he was bad. T, thank you very much. I get a super chat ready and you steal my words. Am I reading your mind? And are you reading mine? Stop it. P.S. We have something. Hope. Confidence. Yeah, I definitely think there's 100%, man. I definitely have hope and confidence in the future of this football team for sure. And I think the majority of the fan base does as well. Obviously, people have sour grapes today because they were upset of what transpired, which was nothing. A lot of people, but overall, I'm very confident in the future direction of this football team. Earl says C-. Yeah, I think maybe even a D+, C-. As a drafter, I'd probably give him like a C+, B-, but overall, I'd give him like a D+ because he was so bad at the other aspects of his job. Let's see. Hard to miss with selecting at the top of your draft. That's also a fair point, Young. That's also a fair point, Young. In regards to Gettleman's drafting, a broken clock is right twice a day. That's true. Is it more or less likely that we add Odell now? I'll go more likely, but I still don't know how likely it is. But the fact we didn't make a trade, I'll go more likely. But again, I still don't think it's incredibly likely, but I'd go more likely. Exotic says, Chris, I know it's mid-season, but what do you think our record is going to be next year? I wish I could give you an answer to that, Exotic. I don't even know our schedule. I don't even know where our quarterback's going to be. I'll give you the quick answer, Exotic. I'm going to give you two doors. I'm going to give you two doors. Door number one, Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones are back with this football team. The New York Giants addressed the wide receiver position in the draft and free agency. My expectations going into next year, regardless of what our schedule is probably going to be 10 wins plus. Door number two, we don't bring back Saquon Barkley. We draft a rookie quarterback. 5 wins. At that point, you're starting over all over again with a rookie quarterback. So that's why I can't even tell you what my expectations for next year's football team is. Are we building more with the core pieces of this current roster, or is Joe Schoen taking away the quarterback, taking away Saquon Barkley, and starting from scratch? I need to know that answer before I can give you an expectation on next year's team. Brandon Rogers. He says, good game on Sunday. Best of luck to you guys. Appreciate it, Brandon. Brandon, of course, been with me forever. Big Seahawks fan. And, you guys kicked our ass, man. I got to give you guys credit, man. Your run defense was a lot better than I thought it would be. They definitely showed up. They were really diligent in terms of the RPO with Daniel Jones. They took that away. They did a great job against Saquon. So you guys played a really good game. I'll give you that. Christy says starting from scratch. If we're starting from scratch, we're a 5-win team next year. 5-win team. Maybe 6. You can't expect much more from a rookie quarterback. If we're pushing forward with DJ, 10 wins plus. That's my expectations going into the year. I loved Shane's thinking on rebuilding this team, David says. Yeah. If your team has a rookie quarterback, you're pretty much saying you're not competing. Yeah, I mean, look at your team this year, right, with the Steelers, right? I'm going to be honest. Seahawks ain't going far. They probably won't even make the playoffs. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, you got to figure the Niners are going to continue to improve, and we'll see what the Rams do. But I think Seattle's got a decent shot to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win the West. I think the Niners are still going to win the West, but I think they could get a wild card. We're keeping Saquon, and Joe gave you a hint in that video. He gave you a hint about Daniel Jones also, Billy. I think in that video, if you want to go by it with Saquon, he said good things about DJ also. Young Joe says, I think this bye week will be huge for us. DJ and Saquon Barkley get a chance to finally get back to 100%, and hopefully other guys come back in. Yeah, I mean, hopefully we get Kenny Golladay back. Hopefully we get Evan Neal back. We'll see. I don't know how long. Well, from what I read today, it sounds like Galladay's going to be back. Joe Schoen basically said that today. He didn't confirm it, but he said he was very confident for the most part that he'll be back next. When we get back after the bye. Like you said, Jones rests up. He's been a bit dinged up. Barkley's had the hurt shoulder. So hopefully those guys get close to 100%. And a lot of the guys that have been down with injuries come back. Who do you let's see. I say this. If Daniel Jones continues to play great football throughout the season, I say he will be back next season. Let's get to the end of the season first, but I'm trending that way myself. I don't think they let Saquon walk for nothing. Yeah, well, they'd get a comp pick for him if they let him go, but I agree with you. I think they're bringing him back. Maybe a tag and trade. Maybe. If they didn't want to keep him, after this year, I guess. But I think they're signing him. I think he's going to stay here. Sean G says, Chris, you scared me. I wasn't fully paying attention and thought you meant Golladay was going to be back. No. He's going to be back next game after the bye. I think it's L16 Flip, but I'll get you the exact number. I got to talk to Justin, but I think it's L16 is the parking lot. His comments about extending players before they walk, put the door, is a big hint of extending Saquon, in my opinion. Well, I mean, it's the same thing with Jones, right? I mean, they're both free agents next year. But maybe I'm not picking up why you think that leans more towards Saquon than Jones. They're both hitting the door next year, right? Kuda says, Tana, I think we have 4 straight divisional games. It looks a little scary, but I'm confident. It's either 4 out of 5 or 4 straight. I can't recall. But yeah, we play the Cowboys once. We play the Eagles once. We play Washington twice during that span. And then, of course, we play the Eagles the last week of the season. Donovan says, Joe said if they extend anybody, it will be this week until the end of the year. I don't see them extending Barkley this week or Jones this week. I think you still want to see if those guys go. What's the benefit in extending either one of those players right now, especially with the injury histories they have? What if they get hurt? So I don't think they'll extend either one of those players until the offseason. Maybe an extension of a guy like Andrew Thomas, perhaps. In season, maybe. Well, you can't even do that. He's got to play 3 full years, actually. I don't think they'll do it in season. I think they'll do it after the year. When they start extending these players, if they start extending these players. Richardson is horrible. I'm a Gator fan. Yeah, people are back and forth on him. I don't think we're taking a quarterback. I really don't. Mark says maybe Golladay will come back at a reduced no. Galladay's due to make there's no way. No. No, he's not coming back. We're going to end up cutting Golladay. We're going to save $7 million next year. He's not coming back. He'll sign on somewhere else probably for a very cheap contract, but maybe he comes back after we cut him for next to nothing, but I don't think so. I think he'll move on. He doesn't fit our offense very well. Mark says any team is foolish to invest big money in a running back, plenty coming out every year that are cheap. And that's a common opinion that a lot of people share, and I respect it because it has been proven in the NFL that, yes, you could certainly make a very strong argument that it's not the best idea to give big money to a running back. So I understand that mindset. But I also think Saquon Barkley is not your typical running back. So it's an interesting conversation. But I understand where you're coming from. Let's see. Muted Growl. We got to be real about this roster. No one move makes them a Super Bowl contender. No move is the best move. Well, I think that's why, and he even said that. Basically, he said that in the press conference, right? I could go back and pull it up, but he said in so many words, not those exact words, he said there was not one player that we could trade for that was going to make us a Super Bowl contender overnight. I'm going to paraphrase for him. We have a lot more holes than just one. It's going to take us another year before we really feel like we may be able to be aggressive in a situation like this to try to compete for a championship. That's more or less what he said. So yeah, I agree with that. But at the same time, as a fan that starts 6-2, I understand you want to give your quarterback the best opportunity to go out there and win football games. So I understand that. And yeah, and that's been my mindset on him, Mike. That's what I've said all offseason, all in season. He's a weapon. He's a weapon. He's not your typical running back. He's not Joe Mixon, who's a very good running back, but he's a weapon. But I also understand that running backs have short shelf life. So I understand the argument. Gavin, thank you very much, man. I'm a little disappointed in the lack of reception touches Barkley had this season. Thought the coaching staff would on. Yeah, they used him a bit. How many catches did he have this last game? Maybe 4? How many catches does he have this year? I agree with you. I thought he'd have more catches. I agree with you on that. I am a little bit disappointed in that. I thought they used him more in the pass game. He did have that one pretty big catch this past week, which was kind of out in the flat, which was for 12 yards, but he only had 9 yards receiving because I guess he had negative 3 yards on the other 2 catches. But yeah, thus far this year, he's only got 28 catches. I mean, he's on pace to catch almost 60 balls. Actually, probably a little over 60 because it's 17 games. But I thought he'd be approaching more like 75, 80 catches this year. I agree with you. I thought they'd use him more in the passing game than they have. So, yeah, I agree with you. And maybe some of that has to do with the fact that they're not fully equipped at the wide receiver position. They feel like they need to use him more as a running back. I don't know. But I thought that he would be used more in the passing game than they've used him. I agree with you on that. Tina, check my last comment. Let me see, JD. Let me see what you said. Where are you? There you are. When you evaluate Shane's class this season, plus his influence on the Bills' mid-round gems, Shane values day 2, 3 picks more than the normal GM would. Many GMs miss on those rounds. Good for Giants fans. And that's what you want, right? I mean, that's where the best GMs make their money. That's where the best GMs win football, build Super Bowl winning rosters. They say that all the time. Somebody just said that earlier when I was talking about Gettleman. If you're even an adequate GM, you should be able to draft well in the first round. It's the GMs that can find gems in the rounds 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. That's where you're going to win Super Bowls. That's where Baltimore's been able to build not that they've won a ton of Super Bowls, but that's where they've been able to build their good rosters later in the draft. Even the Rams, right? We all talk about how the Rams trade away all their draft picks, but they actually draft very well in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round, over the last 5 or 6 years. That's where the best GMs find their talent. But, of course, having a good head coach gives you a better opportunity to get the most out of those picks, which is what we think we have with Dable. Trayvon Tyler says, how do you think DJ played this past week? I'm not going to say he played his best game, but, I mean, who's he throwing to? Who's he throwing to? So, he didn't play his best game. I'll give him like a C. But, I mean, who's he throwing to? And credit to Jacksonville. They shut down the run game. He's got limited help in terms of the wide receiver position. He doesn't have Daniel Bellinger out there. I mean, he missed on a couple of throws. I don't think he played great, but I wouldn't say he was horrible in that football game, considering his supporting cast. And Brandon, man, thank you for being a member for 23 months. Kind of wanted Okudah or Judy. Yeah, I would have liked Okudah for the right price. I don't know how he's playing this year. Obviously, he was a very highly thought of prospect coming out. But I'm not. I heard people starting to rumble that they may trade Okuda because they started selling. But I'm not too upset. They were probably asking for more than even I'd be comfortable giving, and Joe we trust. Yeah, I think in the end that's what it comes down to. It comes down to the price. Giants Mafia says, Chris, we're not going to blow out the Texans, and you know it. I don't think we're going to blow out the Texans. I don't think we're going to blow out the Texans. I don't think we're going to blow out anybody, Giants Mafia. I don't think we have the type of team that's going to do that. All I said was if there was a game where we're going to do it, it's going to be the Texans game. You're coming off the bye. You have 2 weeks to prepare. They're probably your weakest opponent on the schedule. But I don't think we're going to blow out anybody. Just like I don't think anybody's going to blow us out. I think it's the style of football that we play. Now, we may get blown out if we turn the football over 4 or 5 times. But outside of doing something like that, I think for the most part, we're going to be in the majority of the games that we play because of the style of football that we play. But we're also not going to blow anybody out. We give ourselves an opportunity to stay competitive from within the game, and we hope to have an opportunity in the fourth quarter. That's basically been our philosophy as a football team because we know we have limitations. But we haven't been blown out all year. That wasn't a real 14-point loss. We were down 7 with the ball with 6 minutes left, and Richie James fumbled the football. We would have had the lead at halftime, but Richie James fumbled the football. So we were right in that game. We were right in the Dallas game. We had the ball down 7 with, 2 minutes to go. So we had an opportunity in that game. I think we're going to give ourselves opportunity every week, but I also think we're going to give the opposition an opportunity to beat us. It's going to be a close competitive game. Let's see. Am I planning on doing a tailgate? I'm going to Justin's tailgate. I don't know if they're going to provide food or anything like that, Alan, but I'm meeting up with him. I'm going to bring beer with my brother, but I'm not bringing like a grill or anything like that, but I'm going to go and hang out before the game. Forget a blowout. How about just a convincing win? It'd be nice, Chris. I'd like to have a nice convincing win, a 10-point win, relax. I just don't think that's in our nature. Do you think we could realistically beat the Eagles? Yes. I wouldn't favor us at all, but yes, I think we could beat the Eagles. We have to play a near perfect football game, but can we beat them? Yes. If we possess the ball for 34 minutes like we've been doing every week for the last 3 weeks, and we don't turn the football over, and we convert on third down like we've done for the most part the last 3 or 4 weeks, we could beat the Eagles. Or at least give ourselves a chance to beat them. But of course I'd favor the Eagles. I don't think they'll kill us unless we beat ourselves. But if the Giants play within themselves and they try to chew up clock and have long sustaining drives, I don't think they'll kill us. They'll probably beat us. I'm going to pick the Eagles, but I don't think they'll kill us. I don't love the way we match up with them defensively, though. I'll tell you that. They got 2 really good wide receivers. Obviously, they got a really strong ground attack. Stanley, what's going on? He says, hey, Chris, why the Giants punt on the trade deadline? Value. Simple as that. Joe Schoen didn't feel like the players met the value that he had for them. He didn't want to overspend. Simple as that. That's what Seattle did, and our offense was stifled. What do you mean? Talking about, yeah, our offense didn't play well. I mean, they did have a 10-minute drive in the second half, but we just didn't get into the end zone. But yes, our offense was bad last week. We were still in that game. It was the same exact scenario as the Tennessee game. We were going to get the ball on the road with 6 minutes left with a chance to score and go for 2 to win the game. We gave ourselves a chance to win. Didn't play well. I'm not telling you we played great. We didn't. The defense played very well. Dan, what's going on? Amazing there were other reasons we struggled against the Hawks. We'll be fine. Did anybody think we'd be 6-2? Hell no. Just shows how good of a coach crew we have now. Yeah. McCann says, I feel like we apply quarterback pressure, stay in lanes, we will be okay against it. I think we can keep it competitive. I'm not going to pick us, but we have a chance. We need a new punt. We definitely need a new punt returner. Dable should have replaced Richie James from within that game, but we definitely need a new punt returner. I don't want to rag on Richie James because he's not a guy I expected much going into the year, but let's be honest with ourselves. He's the main reason we lost that football game. You can't have punt returners costing you football games, right? There was probably a 6-point swing at the end of the first half because the fumble led to a field goal, and we probably would have had a field goal had he not fumbled. on his first fumble. So that was a 6-point swing. And then at the end of the game, that was arguably a 10-point swing because maybe we get a field goal on that drive. Who knows? But they got a touchdown out of it. So, he cost us the game. Maybe we still lose if he doesn't fumble, but it definitely would have been very close. I don't know who the new punt returner is going to be, but I don't think it's going to be Richie James. I'll tell you that right now. Maybe Brightwell. Well, Brightwell's been the kick returner, but yeah, maybe they use him as the punt returner as well. Darnay Holmes did return punts, I think, in college. I remember that when he first got drafted by the Giants. I don't think the offense was as bad as people are making it seem. Without 2 linemen, it's, of course, well, yeah, we had a ton of injuries. Like you said, Bellinger, we're missing 2 starting offensive linemen. So we had a lot of injuries, man. And Michael says, Tana, I'm not going to lie. Wan'Dale is too high of a pick for Kafka and Dable to not utilize him. He needs to be better. Fair, but I mean, what was it? Really only like his second game in terms of getting a full allotment of snaps. So he's a rookie. It's hard for me to be overly critical, especially of a second-round pick. It's very hard for me to be overly critical about a second-round pick, really throughout the entirety of the rookie season. I'm going to give him some time. Think about Xavier McKinney year 1. Granted, he was hurt, but Xavier McKinney didn't show much his rookie year. He showed glimpses, I guess, when he finally got out on the football field, but not a ton. And then the next year he started to take off. So I'm going to give Wan'Dale some time. I'm going to give him into his second year before I start to say maybe that was a really bad pick. I'm not going to go crazy with him. I'm going to give him at least another year. Shane and Dable are at the Rangers game. Are they? Dable loves the Rangers, man. Do we know if Kenny G is back after the bye? Nothing's confirmed, but it's definitely trending that way, according to Shane. Don't worry, be happy. What's going on, Bookend, man? Thanks for popping the stream, buddy. Vid is on Twitter. What, regarding, I don't know if they said 100%, but it sounded like, from what I heard, he's going to play. And, regarding Kenny Golladay. You got to stop betting on the Giants, Zany, man. Hey, Chris, I just got checked in. They showed Shane and Dable. Oh, there you go. So, yeah. Kenny G going to have a bounce-back week. I like how we match up with Houston. I hope so, man. If Kenny Golladay bounces back, listen, you want to talk about a guy that could be an X factor for the Giants for the remainder of the year, it's him. Not telling you he's going to be the guy that we thought we were getting, no. But if he could be a contributor, he could help the receiving corps. That could go a long way. Jesse Green says, "Hey, Tana, it's been a fun ride thus far, right? I mean, last week sucked, but it is what it is. We're 6-2. We split on the road. We get back healthy. We got 2 very winnable games. If we could get to 8-2, we give ourselves a good chance to make the playoffs. And we'll see where we go from there. Obviously, it was underwhelming today. We didn't make any moves, but I'm not going to go crazy about it. Chris, I know you were anti-draft talk, but what if we finish in the 20s? Would you take an inside linebacker? I have no idea. I don't know who's going to be there. I haven't even looked at the prospects, and I will let you know. I will do the draft content once I know where we're picking in the draft, and once the season's over. Then I'll have a better grasp of where we're going to be picking, where a lot of these prospects are projected to go, and then I'll have a better idea of where I think we could be leaning in the draft. It's just too early to start projecting on that. I have no idea what he said, Sam. I have no idea what he said. It has nothing to do with me wanting to pay him no mind. Maybe I'll look at the title after this, but I had no idea what he said. I'm sure, it has something to do with Daniel Jones because he wants Daniel Jones to have a wide receiver. And I understand it, but that's just thinking about the here and now. That's thinking about Daniel Jones. That's not thinking specifically about the New York Giants. And I think about both. I want Daniel Jones to be successful. I want Daniel Jones to come back next year. But at the end of the day, you got to think about the team as a whole, not just one individual player. Record projection for the rest of the season, Ben says. I still think I got us at 10 wins. 10-7. With a chance maybe even do a little better. But if you asked me to make a prediction, I think I'd say 10-7. Because I do really think we're going to win our next 2 games. Hawkinson just got traded from the Lions. And obviously Houston, I think we should beat. So that's 8. Then you got 2 games against Washington and a Colts team with a backup quarterback. 2 out of 3. I think that's reasonable. That's 10 wins. So even if you lose the 2 Eagles games, you lose the Cowboys game, you lose the Vikings game, that's still 10 wins. So I think 9 or 10 wins is very reasonable right now as a Giants fan. And maybe they do a little bit better, but I'm still sticking with 10 wins right now. I'd say 9 and 8 at worst. I saw amazing guys say 10 and 7 at worst. I think I'd say 9 and 8 at worst. I don't think it's going to be at worst, but if I had to say an at worst, I think I'd say 9 and 8. Maybe 8 and 9, like super worst case scenario. But I think 9 and 8 is like semi-reasonable worst case scenario. And then I would say between 9 and 11 wins. That's where my mind's at right now. Connor says, Chris, do you think we split with the Cowboys? It's going to be tough. I'm not going to lie to you. It's going to be tough. Dallas is very good. They're very good on both sides of the ball. I actually think Dallas is better than Philadelphia. I know the record doesn't say so, but I think they're better than Philadelphia. Or at least damn near close. They're really good. So I worry about the Cowboys, but we got a chance. Hopefully have a Neal's back by then. And you have to think he's going to be more advanced and he won't get embarrassed the way in which he did last time we went up against them. But it's all going to come down to health, too. How healthy are we going into that game? How's the team playing? But let's get there first. No, I definitely think we could win one against Wash. No, I just said 4 to 5. 4 to 5 between Houston, both Washington games, the Colts, and the Lions. I think we're going to win 4 of those 5 games. Whether it be sweeping Washington and losing to the Colts, whether it be splitting with Washington, beating the Colts, I think we're going to win 2 out of 3 between the 2 Washington games and the Colts game, and I think we're going to beat the Lions, and I think we're going to beat the Texans. I think we're going to win 4 of those 5 games. That's how I think we're going to get. That's how I'm projecting us to have 10 wins. Detroit can't win away games in their. We should beat Detroit. There's no reason we shouldn't beat Detroit. We better not lose to the Texans or Lions. Can you rank the quarterbacks in the division? I mean, right now, and it's silly to rank them because of the situations that they're in. But Jalen Hurts' situation is so much better than Daniel Jones, but I can't rank Daniel Jones ahead of Jalen Hurts right now. So you still got to put Dak above Jones. I'd have Jones third right now, but I don't think he's as far away as some may think with those 2 quarterbacks. He's got a horrible situation. I saw it. Something to do with like a bow and arrow regarding I didn't know what it meant though. I just scanned through it on Twitter. I didn't really like read into exactly what it meant. But I saw that Brandon Cooks was not happy that he wasn't traded. Which is ironic because the guy is traded all the time. He should be used to it by now. Curious, what is the Giants' record coming off the bye, say, the past 5 years? To me, that doesn't mean much, J-Fed, because it's been with Pat Shurmur as the head coach and, Joe Judge. So this is a completely new coach, right? It's a completely new football team. So to me, that doesn't mean a whole lot, but I could look it up. Giants record off the bye. Nope, never mind. I thought I found it. But again, it doesn't mean anything. Last year off the bye, the Giants lost. The year before that, the Giants won. They're 1-1 in their last 2. 2019, they lost. They lost like every game they played. 2018, they won. So they're actually 2-2 in their last 4 years off the bye with horrible coaches and horrible football teams. They're 2-2. Do you see the Giants going to the Super Bowl this year? No, absolutely not. Guys, it's 9:24. When did I start this? I think 7:30. So I think I'm going to close it out. I just wanted to go. I was going to just make a video, and then a couple of people on Twitter asked me to go live to talk about it. I'm going to be live all week, by the way, on this channel because Mike Too Nice is going to be on this week. It's our turn to be on this channel. That'll probably be Wednesday or Thursday. No, not tomorrow because I got to go into the city for work tomorrow. So probably Thursday. And then Friday, I'll probably be on with Bad Dog, depending on the Lakers schedule. I don't know when the Lakers play. So probably Thursday and Friday will be live on this channel. The bye, I don't know if I'll live stream a divisional game. I haven't decided yet. What's going on, Nations, man? Thanks for popping in, buddy. And I should have some more video content up this week. Give me some guys, but while I have you in here, I always like to get suggestions for you guys. Give me some good bye-week content that you'd like to see a video of. I'm going to do a video about Brian Dable. I already have a good topic for that, Brian Dable. So I think I'm going to do a video on that. But give me a good don't tell me the draft. I'm not doing draft content right now. But what's like good bye-week content that you guys would like to see? Mid-season thoughts and grades. That's a good one. I like that one. Like in terms of like the overall roster, like a mid-season report card. That's a pretty good one. Draft stupid. I'm not doing the draft right now. Playoff predictions. Extension videos I'll save. I'll save to see how these players do throughout the rest of the year. What about an all-time team for the Giants? It's not a bad one. Next year's free agents. I'll probably hold off until the offseason for that. But that'll be like, that'll start coming out really quick after the offseason. But I'll write it down. I'll definitely do a Knicks stream when I can. Yes, I'll definitely do a Knicks stream when I can. I think that, I can't do it tomorrow because I'm going to be in the city tomorrow. But the next game I can, maybe I'll do the game after that. Dable's thoughts. Kadarius Toney highlights. Kadarius Toney highlights. All I got to do for Kadarius Toney highlights is show you the Cowboys game. That's it. Done. Over. Playoff predictions standing. Mid-season award. I mean, that's kind of goes in sync with the player grades. Rank the pizza in the city. Let's see. Round table. Well, I'm due to have a round table. I don't know if it's going to be this week. It might be this week. I haven't talked to them. But the guys I do a round table with, it might be this week. It's either this week or the following week. Predictions for the second half. I'll write it down. I already know a video I'm going to do. If Daniel Jones ever works out, which hopefully he does long term, I'm definitely doing a reaction to my draft reaction. That I'm doing. I don't have Madden, so I'm not going to do that. I don't have Madden. And Eli, man, thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. Greatest Italian Giants ever, Mark Bavaro, man. Young Joker album review. The guy's a mumble rapper. I don't get the mumble rap thing. And I know a lot of you guys in here are into that because that's like the new thing, I guess. They literally mumble. Right? I don't get it. I don't get the whole mumble rap thing. The Tony curse. Easiest bathroom access at MetLife. Let's see. Chris, we're boomers. I know. I feel like we definitely are, Shaw. Talk about the 2016 season. No, I don't want to talk about that. Top 5 best moments as a Giant fan. I could probably tell you that right now off the top of my head. My top 5 best moments as a Giants fan. 1, it's got to be the Super Bowl, the first Super Bowl I saw in 2008. 2's got to be the second Super Bowl I saw in 2012. Then after that, it gets interesting. I mean, I think it's got to be the playoff. if we're gonna just include those two playoff runs as a moment each, because otherwise it's just gonna be that. It's gonna be the NFC Championship game of both, So if we're gonna exclude that and just say that that's one moment each, those playoff runs. Let's see. I mean, the 2000 team to this day is still. It's probably. I could actually make an argument, even though Eli's my favorite player, and obviously I love the 2007 and 2011 teams to death. I could make an argument that 2000 Giant team is my favorite Giant team as a fan, because that was really the first team like I really fell in love with. Like I was a Giants fan before then, but that 2000 team made me be a diehard Giants fan. I fell in love with that team, so that 2000 team is certainly up there for me in terms of, my fondest memories as a Giants fan. Just that overall year, obviously beating the Vikings 41-0 in the NFC Championship game. The guarantee by Jim Fossil when we were 7-4, and then we went on to win 5 straight. So that's certainly up there with one of my favorite Giant memories. I mean, Eli Manning's comeback, right, against the Eagles. That one always sticks out to me. I think it was in 2006. It was either 2005 or 2006. That was a regular season game, but we were down. I think we were down 17 points in Philadelphia in the fourth quarter, and the Giants came back and won. That's certainly up there with one of my favorite, regular season memories as a Giants fan. There's so many. I mean, there's so many really good memories that I'm sure I'm forgetting off the top of my head. Let's see. The Crew's running back the touchdown for sure against the Jets, 99 yards. Go in depth about the NFC East opponents for the rest of the year. Okay. Maybe. I just feel like the Eagles are just going to beat everybody, though, because their schedule is so easy. The Odell Cat. See, the reason I'm not going to put the Odell catch in one of my top 5 favorite memories, I mean, in terms of an individual moment and an individual place, sure, of course. It's one of the greatest catches, if not the greatest catch of all time. But we lost the game. So it's like, no, how can for me at least, I can't have an incredible individual moment in a game in which we lost to the Dallas Cowboys as one of my 5 favorite moments of all time. That's just me. Yeah, I just can't. We lost the game. Hakeem Nicks' greatest play, I think, was the game against the Packers in the divisional round where he caught the Hail Mary before halftime. But yeah, he had a lot of great plays during that playoff run. If the Eagles are 16-0, it will be good for the Giants. Yeah, they would probably sit their. I don't know if they would sit their starters though. They may go for the record. They may go for 17-0. Who do you think on the team can make the Pro Bowl? Is that a video topic you think, or you just want me to tell you? Who I think on the Giants team can make the Pro Bowl / All Pro? I could tell you right now. I think Dexter Lawrence certainly could. I think Andrew Thomas certainly could. And I think Saquon Barkley certainly could. I think those 3 players in terms of potential All Pro. I think Barkley certainly could be labeled the best running back in football. I think Andrew Thomas could be labeled the best left tackle in football or best tackle in football, however they give the award. And I think Dexter Lawrence could at least be up for consideration for one of the best interior defensive linemen in football. So I would say those 3 players could at least be in contention for All Pro status. And I think all 3 will be Pro Bowlers at the end of the year. And I actually made a tweet about this, through 3 or 4 weeks through the year. The Giants, I think last year, they only had 1 player inside the top 100 in the NFL, which was Leonard Williams. This team, and Leonard Williams won't be on it because he's been hurt. But I would say the 3 I just mentioned will be in the top 100 at the end of the year. I mentioned Leonard Williams at the beginning because I didn't know he was going to be out for another 3 weeks. So when I initially made the post, I said McKinney. I don't know if McKinney's played. I don't know if he's enough of a household name quite yet to make that list. And even though he's played well, I don't think he's played incredible this year. So I don't think he'll be labeled top 100, but at least maybe up for consideration. I'd say those 3 at this point are probably the top 1. I think we'd have 3 top 100 players in the NFL right now at this point. Those 3: Barkley, Dexter Lawrence, and Andrew Thomas. Those 3. Adoree, maybe Adoree. Maybe. Julian Love. Maybe. I even though I'm not saying they're not deserving, I don't know. I don't know if they'll make it. But even though I agree that Adorie's played very well. Stanley says mumble rap is the new current sound of hip hop. I know it's it's popular. Maybe I got to listen to more. Somebody in my Discord a year ago played me a sample of what mumble rap is. I'm like, it's not for me. But maybe it was just a bad version of mumble rap. I don't know. Fabio Moreau's playing great, but he's not going to be labeled in the top 100 players in the league. He's playing great, though. He's playing out of his mind. The history of the hefty lefty. Geno Smith says, you must regret not keeping me. Hey, man, congratulations. I don't regret not keeping you personally, but you're playing well. You're the best story in the NFL this year, so congratulations, man. You're playing great. You played great this past week. Who would you put Giants in top 10 power? Would you still put? I'm probably gonna do my power rankings tomorrow, actually. So I don't know. I honestly don't know. I have to really look into it. If they are gonna make my top 10, they're gonna just make it. Like, they're definitely falling down in my rankings this week. Last week I did a power rankings video and I had them 5th. They're definitely dropping, obviously. So I don't know where I'm gonna have them drop, but the Seahawks are gonna probably pass them. They beat them heads up. I had the Seahawks like 12 or 13. They're gonna jump the Giants. Yeah, the Vikings are going to jump the Giants. I had them at 6. We'll see. I don't know where I'm going to have them. If they're going to be in the top 10, they're going to just be in the top 10, but we'll see. Probably not, though. I probably have them. I don't know. I don't know quite yet. The Ravens are going to jump them. They were behind them. We'll see. Not quite sure where I'm going to have the Giants quite yet. SB says X-Man won't have the interceptions right now. Fans know he's good. Yeah, I think Giants fans know he's good, but I don't know because of that, because he doesn't have the game-breaking plays. I don't know if he'd make a top 100 list, but of course Giants fans know he's good. If Leonard Williams never got hurt, I agree, he'd probably make the top 10, but because he's missed basically 4 games, we'll see, but it's going to be tough for him to make it. Leonard Williams played great this past week. Leonard Williams was the best player in our defense this week. He was great this week. DJ gets to the Pro Bowl by someone dropping out. You never know. Anybody can make the Pro Bowl nowadays. Do I agree with what Shane did? I do. Even though I don't love it, I would have agreed if he acquired a player if it made sense in terms of the value. But based off of what his explanation was, yeah, I agree with Joe Shane not overspending and hurting the future to help the present. Had he made a trade that I felt was a reasonable and good trade in terms of value, I would have also agreed with that. So, yeah, I agreed that he didn't overcommit. And I said that before the trade deadline. I said, I hope he trades for a player if it makes sense and it could help this year's team. But if he doesn't, I will understand. So I understand. There isn't a Pro Bowl. Oh, that's right. There isn't a Pro Bowl this year, but they'll probably still name Pro Bowlers, right? Like, you'll still get a title, I would imagine. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would imagine there'll be a title, like you were a Pro Bowler. Chris, did you see the Thomas video Bobby and Justin shared? Crazy. No, I didn't. Is it on Twitter, Playoff P? If it is, I'll definitely check it out after. I always love watching those Andrew Thomas videos that he posts on Twitter. And he posted on his channel as well when he does the offensive line breakdown. I told you Geno was good. The Giants must regret. Ben McAdoo in the chat. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Playoff P tonight. Then I always like watching those offensive line videos. I'll hang out with you guys for a little bit longer, and then we're gonna call it. Well, I'll hang out with you guys till 10. I like talking to you guys when I get the opportunity to just shoot the crap with you, or I don't want to say the S word on. There's kids listening. Even though sometimes I curse. Joey B says, Nick Wright says the Giants are fool's gold. Today didn't help change that perception. I don't really care what Nick Wright thinks. And he might be right in the sense of being a Super Bowl contender. We probably are fool's gold, if we're being honest with ourselves. But we're not supposed to be where we are. I don't really care what he thinks, though. I could care less what Nick Wright thinks. I could care less what ESPN thinks. I used to be a person that got bothered by what Nick Wright said and what ESPN said. And the more and more I've been on YouTube, the more and more I realize, I don't really watch ESPN anymore. I'll listen to podcasts. I'll watch other YouTubers. I'll listen to sports radio when I'm driving. But the more and more I realize, like, ESPN is like entertainment. Like, ESPN is literally, in my opinion at least, organized debates where these guys half the time don't even believe half the stuff that's coming out of their mouth. They just say stuff to say stuff. So, to create hot topics and to get clicks and to get people to view the television screen, which is what they're supposed to do. But I don't care what Nick Wright says. I don't care what Dan Orlovsky says. I don't care what these guys say at the end of the day. do a podcast on the life of times of Nicolas Cage. Vibrating Universe says we have a complete team capable of winning it all. I hope you're right, man. Do you think the Giants are getting OBJ? I mean, I'd slightly be leaning that we are, yeah. No, I'm sorry. No. I don't think we're getting OBJ, but I think it's more probable than it would. Somebody asked me this question earlier. That's why I was thinking about it as I was answering your question. I think it's more probable he will be a Giant today than I would have had we traded for somebody. But if I had to guess, I'm still leaning he won't be a Giant. But it's possible. Just not very likely. Like, if I had to put like a percentage on it right now, I don't know, like 15%. But that's higher than I would have said a month ago. I would have said 0%. So I'll go like 15% maybe right now if I was going to put like a percentage on it. Well, Donovan Mitchell's off to a great start. But you knew he would be. He's a great player. Why so low? Well, because the Giants don't have much money. That's the main reason at the end of the day. The Giants don't have a lot of money. And there's teams around the league that have more, and there's situations around the league that are probably better for him as an individual. Which situation I'm not too sure, but there's probably, maybe he goes back to the Rams. He's familiar with that offense with McVay and everything. I don't know, but I think there's a chance. I would have said there's no chance like a month ago. Diego, he says, hey, Chris, watch the corner, Joey Porter Jr. He's a stud that will go in the middle of the first. I've seen us. I've not done much, especially like corners and stuff. I've not looked in at all. I just wrote them down, but I have been looking at mocks periodically when I'm bored during the day, just to see some names that the New York Giants could potentially be interested in. And a lot of the mocks, like right now, I'll pull up a mock real quick. Not that this means anything. But the majority of the mocks that I've seen as of late for the Giants have us going with a cornerback. I don't know if it's that one in particular. But I'll just put, there's a random, this may not even be the one I looked at. So this may not be a cornerback. But I'm just going to pull up a random CBS sports mock right now. I think like the last three though, that I've looked at, I think at least two of them had us going with a corner. CJ Stroud, Will Levis, those have been pretty much the consensus top two I've seen as of late. And then generally speaking, they have, Bryce Young going fourth. Will Anderson, great edge rush. That guy's if you don't watch, I don't watch a ton of college football. I've watched a lot of Alabama games this year. Will Anderson is incredible. I think Will Anderson as a prospect is probably better than any prospect in this past year's draft. I think he's a better edge prospect than Aiden Hutchinson. Like, he's ridiculous. When I see him at Alabama, he's awesome. And if it wasn't for quarterback, he would be the number one pick in next year's draft. They got him going third to Chicago. Bryce Young going four to Carolina. So three quarterbacks in the first four. Jalen Carter, Miles Murphy, Antonio Johnson, Quentin Johnson, Anthony Richardson. He's the fourth quarterback off the board. There's that wide receiver from Ohio State. They got him going 12. There's the one from LSU. They got him going 13. And where are we? There's a cornerback. Eli Ricks, Alabama. I don't think this is the mock I looked at earlier today either. Most of the mocks I've seen, and again, it's way too early. Most of the mocks I've seen as of late, the last couple of weeks, have had the Giants going cornerback. I would prefer a wide receiver personally, but And Richard says, why everyone talking about Geno won, beat our 2-interception game, 13-13. We lost ourselves. I mean, Geno played well. He deserves credit for it. He played well. But, yeah, I mean, we had 2 fumbles. And to be fair, Geno's throwing one of the top 3 or 4 receiving cores in football if you're going to compare him to Daniel Jones. But he won. He played well. Give him his credit. AZ Bills fan says, thoughts on Bills getting Hines for Moss and a 6th? To be honest with you, you're talking about the running back? I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. Let me take a quick look. You're talking about the running back from the Colts? You take a quick look. Yeah, they got Nyheim Hines. Good pickup for them. I mean, it's just another weapon. I don't watch a ton of Colts football, but Hines is a good pass catcher from what I've seen out of the backfield. He's definitely like a nice change of pace back. Yeah, he'll probably fit very nicely in that offense. And the Bills, that just adds another dynamic weapon in their backfield with Josh Allen. So, yeah, it's a good. I mean, they didn't give up much, right? They gave up a 6th-round pick. So, yeah, it's a good pickup for you guys. You're a win now team. Any little move that could help put you over the top. Katrik, he says, my birthday, stand up. Happy birthday, Katrik, man. Happy birthday, dude. Got to meet Katrik at FanFest. But happy birthday, man. Do you think Galladay's inspired to play big now? I mean, I don't know if he's more inspired than he was before. I don't think the problem with Galladay, I shouldn't say that. There's been times where I've questioned his effort. Like last year, but in fairness, I mean, they had Jake Fromm at quarterback with like 2 weeks to go. So you probably weren't getting max effort out of a lot of the players at that point. But I don't think my question with Galladay overall for the most part has ever been effort. He just injuries and he just hasn't lived up to what we were hoping he would be. So I think the effort will be there, but I just don't know if he's going to play well. I hope he does. I really do. Let's see. Giants are my number 2 team, even more with the similarities between them and Buffalo, and I love your channel. I appreciate that, AZ Bills fan. Yeah, listen, if you're a Bills fan, I think it's only natural at this point for you to at least keep tabs on how the Giants are doing, right? Because we got Dable, we got Shane. We both play in the same state, so there's a little bit of familiarity in that aspect. So, yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with the Bills. I like the Bills. I like the Jets. I have nothing against those 2 teams. And if the Giants end up working out because of these 2, I'll like the Bills even more. Let's see. Chris, do you think we keep Leo around? Yeah. So that's a video topic I'm going to save until after the season. That will be like a video topic I probably have like right after the season when I start talking about like contract details, and I'll probably do individual videos on each individual player in terms of which players I think they may bring back, just because it's extra content during the dead time. I know you guys always want some content. You want a video to take up your day, and it helps me out to be able to provide extra content. So I probably won't do it all in one video. I'll probably do individual players that I think the Giants may look to either bring back or not bring back, and I'll give my reasoning as to why. I think with Leonard Williams, when it comes down to it, and I'm going to pull up his contract right now. Obviously, we all know his contract next year is ridiculous, right? And they backloaded money, which leads you to believe that they're going to further commit themselves to Leonard Williams after this year. But this is Leonard Williams' contract next year. As of now, 2023, he has a $20 million dead cap hit, and he's due to be $32.2 million against the cap with a void year in 2024 of $5.9 million. Meaning if they release him after 2023, he still goes $6 million against the cap, and he's not under contract for 2024. I think what they're going to try to do, and maybe I'll be wrong, I think they're going to try to extend Leonard Williams for a reasonable extension. But I think they're going to approach him and try to extend him and spread out the money. So he's due $32 million, right? I don't know. Maybe they come to him with like a 3 or 4 year extension offer for $22 million a year on average with the ability to get it after 3, but it'll give them more cap flexibility next year. So it's not $32 million against the cap. Maybe it's only $20 million against the cap. Something like that. But I think they're going to – I don't think they're cutting Leonard Williams. People have talked about that as a possibility in the past. I don't think they're cutting Leonard Williams. I think they're going to go to him and try to extend him. to actually create more cap space on next year's number. That's my guess. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my guess. Rafael, favorite Giant, Nick, and Met right now? My favorite Giant right now is probably still Saquon. My favorite Nick right now is probably still RJ. He's not playing well lately, though. And Brunson's catching him quick. I like Brunson. And my favorite Met, I mean, I love DeGrom. I love Pete. I love McNeil. I'll probably go DeGrom. Probably DeGrom. But I love all those guys. What's up, Philip? Calling it now. Shane trades Leo for picks. I don't know. I don't know what Leo's trade market would be because of his contract. I don't know how many people would want to trade for him with $32 million due, but maybe I'm wrong. Playoff B says, to be honest, I would prefer the Bills to win it this year, not the Eagles or Dallas. I think the Bills are going to win it. They were my pick before the year started. I think they're going to win it. Chris, take a look at Ricky Pearsall from Florida. I went to high school with him and might be biased, but he is a beast. Okay. I'll take a look at him. I think I've heard that name before. I've watched a couple of Florida games, so that would make sense why I have heard it. At the beginning of the college season before the pros came on, I watched a couple of Gators games because everybody was talking about Anthony Richardson. So I think I remember that name. I think I have seen him. Do you think DeGrom is leaving us? No, I don't. I think the Mets are going to keep DeGrom when push comes to shove. The Mets have only had one lifetime Met in terms of like great Met from start to finish in the franchise's history. Steve Cohen, I think, is going to spend the money. I think he's going to keep DeGrom. Even though in the end, it's kind of like the Judge deal for the Yankees. Like, I think the Yankees are going to sign Judge knowing full well that at some point they're going to regret that contract just because of his age. And if it's like a 9 or 10 year deal, probably the last 5 or 6 years of that contract you're going to regret, but you know that when you sign him. I think it's going to be similar with DeGrom. You know when you sign the contract, there's a good chance maybe the last couple of years of this contract we could regret it. Obviously, he's got an extensive injury history, and you worry about that. But I just think he's a player they're not going to let go, especially with Steve Cohen as the owner. I think they're going to bring DeGrom back. I'd be very surprised if they don't bring DeGrom back. Nation says, Chris, what's next after YouTube? You think you'll ever stop or you? I mean, who knows, Nations, man. I still just do this for fun and see where it goes. I mean, what I would like to see this channel become eventually, as hopefully I grow, is I would love, and I don't know how I would go about doing it. I would love to have a producer, and I would love to have a show. Not identical, obviously, but I'd love to have a podcast similar to what's his name? Why am I forgetting his name? He's like the biggest guy on YouTube, the former punter. Why am I forgetting his name? He's awesome. I love his show. But I would like to have something similar to that. Like that, I think that would be awesome. To be able to have a weekly, daily podcast where Pat McAfee, something like that. I would love to have something like that where I have myself and maybe a producer and another guy, and we do a weekly show. We have topics every day. I would love for the channel to grow into something like that eventually. And obviously I would still do like the play-by-plays and stuff, but I would love for the channel to eventually turn into something like that. I'm not there yet, but I would love something like that where I have like organized topics and it's a very like organized show and podcast and there's like sponsors, and I would love for something like that. I don't know if it'll become that, but I would love that. We need to re-sign Thomas and Lawrence long term. I think we're going, especially Thomas. I think we're going to. Seeing a lot of beers if you did that. I think in a few years that's a possibility. Looking at the numbers, 50K subs isn't a small amount. Every year your channel will grow, and hey, you never know. You never know. But that'd be cool. You know, another big picture idea I've had in the past that I floated about to YouTubers, and again, it would take a lot of organizing. How like they have WFAN. I've thrown out the idea, and of course you'd have to work with guys you could trust, and you would need sponsors ahead of time to be able to fund the channel. Because if you're going to do this, you have to do it full time. Would be like a radio station on YouTube where it's like 24-hour sports talk, where like I have like a shift from 3 to 7 with another guy. Then another pair comes on from 7 to 10. So basically WFN, but instead of on the radio, it's on YouTube, where it's New York sports talk around the clock. I think that'd be cool. So those are just like ideas I've had in the past. Vinny says, what happened to Justin from Nebraska? I thought he was great. I'm not sure, Vinny. I can't believe you don't have the NFL package. I don't have DirecTV. I have the Red Zone. I have the NFL Network and I have Red Zone. You should get a Giants player on this channel. I actually got to reach out to Lawrence Tynes. He was supposed to come on the channel. So I think he is coming on the channel. I just don't know when. It's probably going to be this week, maybe next week. I'll probably save it for next week. But I got to reach out. I got to talk to him because he told me he was going to come on he told me he was going to come on in like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I got to shoot him a message. So I think I'm going to get Lawrence Tynes on the channel. Former player. Please don't be sponsored by Cars for Kids. I don't know why there was controversy, Frankie. I'll tell you why there was Actually, I do know why there was controversy. Frankie, I'm assuming you've been a subscriber of my channel for a long time. I've seen you in my live streams. If you are a subscriber of my channel, you know that I heart and like every comment that I get. Right? You know that. And obviously, it was a mistake on my part, but whatever. The reason I heart every comment I get is because I just want the person to know that I read their message. So when Bengal came on my channel for that podcast or whatever it was, there was a couple. I don't even remember what people said in the comments, but there was probably like 2 comments where people said it wasn't like anything like super egregious, but it was something negative. Like 2 people said something negative about what Bengal had to say, and I hearted the comment. So then I didn't even see what he said, but supposedly people told me he said something about me on his channel, and that's why he said it. And then I messaged him, and I assumed that was probably it. And I said, I do go back and watch every video I've ever made. That's what I do. I said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. But that was why. That was why he got mad at me, because I hearted a comment that somebody said something negative about him. So that was the reasoning. But I've since moved on from that. Are the Giants going to draft a wide receiver in the first round or trade or sign for a wide receiver in free agency? They could do both. They could do both. You know, I don't know what wide receivers are going to be available via trade. There's no way I could know that going into the offseason, but I could certainly see them trading for a wide receiver. Depends who's available. Depends what the market is, so on and so forth. Chris, is that a Mets hat or a Knicks hat? No, this is I got to give you guys, I actually talked to the guy who made my my merchandise. This is my merchandise. I haven't put it up for sale yet, but there's a website, and yeah, I got to start promoting that. Probably next week I'll start promoting that and organize that better. But this is my merchandise. It says like Entertainment Talking Sports on the side, and then I got the T-shirt says Entertainment Talking Sports on it, and I got a trucker hat too that says like the Entertainment Talking Sports. I've worn it a few times on the channel. So it's just my merchandise. And I'm going to have a link for you guys next week. So there's a quick promo that I didn't mean to make. Who have been the most surprising players for you this year? I think Dexter Lawrence for me. I think he's been the most surprising player for me as a Giants fan. Yeah, I think Dexter Lawrence has been the most surprising player. I always thought he was good, but not this good. So I would go with him. And Fabian Moreau, too. But I think in terms of like the core players, I think I would say Dexter Lawrence. I would do another collab with Bengal. I don't know how he feels about me. So I'm not going to push for it, especially after he said some negative things about me. But if he came to me and said, Chris, let's work together, yeah, I'd work with him. I got nothing against him. It was just a misunderstanding. Let's see what we got. Should get some fancy merch like someone smashing a chair over the Eagles symbol. I don't even know what he said about me, Nations, but a bunch of people told me he said something bad. I don't even know exactly what he said. But it was like in his live stream. He didn't make like a dedicated video about it. I collab with Authentic all the time. I mean, I'll definitely. The problem with Authentic right now is my 9 to 5 doesn't really gel with when he does his show, because generally speaking, he does his show midday. I'm at work, so that's why I haven't been on his channel for the most part. But yeah, I've had Authentic on my channel I think twice so far this year, and yeah. Who do you think the GM would have been if Judge were never fired? That's a good question. Let me ask the chat that. If Joe Judge was never fired, you're gonna hate my answer. You're gonna hate my answer. No, there's no way they could have done that. There's no way they could have done that. I think it would have been an in-house hire. I was going to say Gettleman, but then I was like, there's no way they could have kept him. But I don't think they would have made a major change. I think it would have been an in-house hire. I remember they hired that dude from the Lions. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, who had prior ties to Joe Judge in New England. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But that's the guy, if I had to guess. He was like kind of like an assistant GM, or he had some kind of role in the front office. That's the guy I think they would have hired had they kept Joe Judge. Either him or Kevin Abrams. O'Brien, that's the one. O'Brien. Yeah, I think it would have been O'Brien. Had they kept Joe Judge, I think Kyle O'Brien, I think his name was. I think he would have been the general manager. And it would have been like a trial year. It would have been like a 1-year experiment. Let's see if we could push forward with Joe Judge. And I'm going to be honest with you. That's where I think it was trending. I really do. That's where I think it was trending. I think Joe Judge was coming back until he did what he did with the press conference. I think they were going to bring him back. Because if you're being honest with yourself, in terms of the win-loss department, how could you really blame Joe Judge last year? We were 4-7. Daniel Jones goes down. And then you've got Jake Fromm at quarterback. Like, you're not winning any games with Jake Fromm, right? And we had a very damaged roster as is. So I don't think the record ultimately is what got Joe Judge fired. I think it was the way that he handled the media. And obviously the QB sneak at the end of the season was just that was the tip of the iceberg. But I think Joe Judge gave into the media pressure, gave into the fan pressure. Had he not done that, I really think Joe Judge may have gotten fired. I may have kept his job, rather. May not have gotten fired. And we would have hired probably an in-house guy, whether that be O'Brien or whether that be Abrams. And it would have been like a 1-year test to see if they could push forward with Joe Judge. That's where I think it was trending. And thank God that didn't happen, because we would have never ended up with Dable. And NY Giants 26 says, what did Judge do in the press conference? I forgot. I mean, he literally went on like a 3-minute rant. Basically, it seemed very scripted and pre-rehearsed, and you could tell that he was taking a shot at the fans, at the media, at the people that were at the trolls, basically. Because at that point, that's what the fans were. They were trolls, right? Because every week, everyone would say, Joe Judge says the same thing every week. I'm going to look at the tape. I'm going to look at the tape. I'm going to look at the tape. And the media would, go after him a bit, and he would always, give the proper responses, which is what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to give too much to the media and the fans. And he was close-vested, and then he opened up, and he went on like a 3-minute tirade where, yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, like 10 minutes. Yeah, it was long. And he embarrassed himself. It was not a good look. And at that point, you said to yourself, this guy probably can't handle New York. And then obviously with the QB sneak and everything else. But had that not happened, he probably still the head coach for the Giants, man. Yeah, he said we're not a clown show. Yes. This ain't no clown show. Yes. Were you in shock that the Giants didn't take a wide receiver before the deadline? No, I'm not. No, I'm not in shock. I wouldn't have been in shock either way if they traded for a wide receiver or if they didn't. It depended on the market, but no, I'm not in shock that they didn't make a move based on how the market developed. Very simple. McAdoo, Shermer, and Judge don't dance in the locker room like Dable does after a win. Yeah, somebody, I think Mike said that earlier. He mentioned Addison from USC. Maybe he did know, and I honestly have no idea. I know, obviously, he said that, right? Here's what I'll say. I do think, and I don't normally like say that, like I don't brag, like I'm like, oh yeah, players watch my channel. I do think Joe Judge watched my channel. Because if you remember when the Giants went on that winning streak, and Joe Judge never wore a red hoodie, ever. And obviously I started wearing the red hoodie when the Giants started winning, when they went on that 4-game winning streak. And we had fun with it, and we kept saying it. By week 2 of the winning streak, all of a sudden you saw Joe Judge wearing the red hoodie in every press conference. I'm like, this dude is watching my channel. Or maybe he doesn't watch my channel, but somebody got word to him. And I do think Joe Judge watched my channel. So maybe Bad Dog, maybe he did see what Bad Dog had to say about him, or maybe he did hear what Bad Dog had to say about him. I know that Kadarius Toney watches my channel, as evidence that I showed you in my video. For sure, I know that Kadarius Toney watched my channel and Bad Dog's channel. But I do think Joe Judge watched my channel, or at least to a certain extent. They watch, Chris. They have a social media team. All teams have one. So does them not getting DJ receiver show? They don't. No, I don't. I mean, maybe Craig, but I don't take it that way. I don't take it that way. I just feel like they didn't feel the market met what these players. They couldn't come to a common agreement on what the players were worth with the teams they were trying to trade with. I don't think they were willing to overspend. I don't think it has anything to do with Daniel Jones. I think they tried. Rudy, what's up, man? Tana, nice to see you, bud. Happy bye week. Let's go. Rudy, man, good to see you, man. Hopefully you're enjoying your fall, soon to be winter. And we got 2 weeks until our next game, man. I'm looking forward to it, but figured I'd go live today. Bad Dog's live now. What is he calling? Are the Lakers playing? I don't even know. If they are, if it's a Giants thing, I'll get off. If it's a Lakers thing, it doesn't really. I guess he's doing a Giants thing. He's doing a Giants thing, guys. I've been on long enough anyway. I was going to end it soon anyway. If he's doing a Giants thing, I'll get off. I don't want to interfere with that. Yeah, he's doing a Giants thing. All right, guys. I'm gonna call it a night. I just wanted to go live for the press conference today. I was gonna make a video, but then a couple of you guys on Twitter said go live. Figured I'd pop on live for a couple hours, hang out with you guys. Especially being that there's not going to be a ton of live content now during the bye week. Well, there will be this week because I got Mike coming on and the Bad Dog and my show is going to be on this channel as well. So we will have live content on the channel this week, discussing last week, discussing the upcoming season. But yeah, had a lot of fun. Looking forward to seeing you guys probably Thursday and Friday as well when Bad Dog will be on the channel. Have a good night, guys, and thank you, Fabian. I appreciate it, man. He says. He's watching now with Milwaukee's best and you talking about Judge? Have a good night, guys. Milwaukee's best is the worst beer ever, by the way. Is that what he got delivered to his house? I can't remember. Was that the beer that he got? I know he got pizza when he got fired. But have a good night, guys. We'll talk soon. Have a good night, everybody.